My wife said she and my daughter were spending Christmas with her ex-husband. She needs a real father figure. If you don't like it, divorce me. I didn't argue. I took the Japan transfer I'd refused for years. 1 week later, she came home and called me in a panic. The snow was falling the night, she told me. Big slow flakes that caught the light from our kitchen window and turned the world outside into something soft and silent, deceptive. I remember thinking how beautiful it looked, how peaceful. While my wife sat across from me at the table we'd picked out together 7 years ago and told me our daughter would be spending Christmas with another man. Mark and I have been talking, Sarah said, her voice steady in that way that meant she'd rehearsed this about Emma, about what she needs. I sat down my coffee. It had gone cold anyway. Okay. She needs stability. She needs a father figure who's actually present. If you've ever felt the moment before impact, that split second when you see the car running the red light, when you hear the ice crack beneath your feet, when you realize the ground is closer than it should be, you know that time doesn't actually slow down. Your brain just suddenly has room for 1,000 thoughts at once. I thought about the school play I'd missed last month because of the Henderson acquisition. I thought about Emma's soccer games, how I'd made it to maybe half of them this season. I thought about the Japan offer sitting in my email inbox, the one I'd turned down 3 times because I couldn't imagine being that far from my family. Present, I repeated. Sarah's fingers wrapped around her wine glass. Her nails were painted a deep red, fresh from the salon. I'd given her my credit card that morning when she asked. I always gave her my credit card when she asked. Mark's been spending time with Emma, taking her to the park, helping with homework, showing up for her recital, the things a father does. Mark. I let the name sit there between us. Her ex-husband, the man she divorced 8 years ago for growing apart. The man who'd paid child support but rarely used his visitation rights until I realized with a cold clarity about 6 months ago. He's changed, Sarah said. And there was something in her voice, something warm. He's really stepped up. Emma adores him. Emma was 10 years old. She'd been 2 when Sarah and I got together, 3 when we married. I'd been the one to teach her to ride a bike. I'd been the one holding her hand on the first day of kindergarten. I'd been the one she called Dad for 7 years until recently. So, what exactly are you telling me? I asked, though I already knew. I could feel it in the air, heavy as the snow piling up outside. Sarah took a long sip of wine. Emma's spending Christmas with Mark. I'm going too. She needs both of us there. And honestly, David, you work through every holiday anyway. I don't work through every. Last Christmas, you took 3 conference calls on Christmas morning. The Tokyo markets don't close for American holidays. Exactly. She leaned forward and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in months. Certainty, decision. The look she got when she'd made up her mind and nothing I said would change it. That's exactly the problem. Emma needs a father who puts her first. Mark is offering to do that. The rational part of my brain, the part that had made me one of the youngest senior analysts at Mercer & Klein, was already running calculations. Sarah's increased spending over the past 6 months, the new highlights in her hair, the gym membership she'd suddenly taken an interest in, the way she'd started dressing nicer for coffee with friends, the subtle shift in how she looked at me, or rather how she'd stopped looking at me at all. The other part of my brain, the part that still remembered our wedding day, the part that still loved her despite everything, was trying to find the words that would fix this. Sarah, I said carefully. We can talk about this if you feel like I'm not present enough. I can make changes. I'm not asking for permission, David. Her voice cut through the kitchen like a blade. I'm telling you how it's going to be. Emma and I are spending Christmas at Mark's cabin in Aspen. 2 weeks. We leave on the 23rd, 2 weeks, Christmas, and New Year's. The holidays I'd specifically kept clear this year, the time I'd fought to protect from work obligations because last year had been so fragmented. And if I say no, I asked quietly. Sarah's laugh was short and cold. Emma's my daughter. Legally, I mean, you never adopted her. We agreed it wasn't necessary since Mark was still in the picture. So, legally, you don't have a say. There it was. The truth beneath the truth. The ground falling away. But beyond that, she continued, her voice taking on a harder edge. If you have a problem with this, David, we can make it simple. Divorce me. The word hung in the air between us like a challenge, like a dare. She stood up, smoothing her designer sweater, the one I'd bought her for her birthday. I'm going to bed. Early morning tomorrow. Mark and I are taking Emma to look at private schools. I sat there in the kitchen for a long time after she left, watching the snowfall, listening to the silence of our house. A house I'd bought with a signing bonus I'd earned by working 100-hour weeks. A house Sarah had decorated with furniture and art and things that cost more than most people made in a month. A house that had somehow somewhere along the way stopped feeling like home. My phone buzzed. An email. I almost ignored it. It was past 11 and nothing good came from checking work email after 11 o'clock. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe that was exactly what Sarah meant when she said I chose work over family. I opened it anyway. Subject: Tokyo transfer final offer. David, I know we've discussed this 3 times now, and each time you've declined. I respect your commitment to your family. However, this is the last time I can extend this offer. The Tokyo office needs a senior analyst who understands both the American and Asian markets. You're our first choice. The package is comprehensive. 40% salary increase, executive housing in Shibuya, full relocation assistance, and most importantly, a 4-day work week with protected weekends. The Japanese office culture we've built values balance in ways our New York office hasn't mastered yet. This offer expires on December 15th. If we don't hear from you by then, we'll be offering the position to another candidate. Best, Richard Chen, Managing Director, Mercer and Klein Tokyo. I read it twice, then 3 times. 40% increase. 4-day work week. Protected weekends. Tokyo, half a world away from watching my marriage disintegrate in slow motion from being told I wasn't enough while being everything I knew how to be. If you've ever stood at a crossroads in your life, you know that some decisions are made in the moment, and some are made in all the moments leading up to it. Every missed recital, every late night at the office, every time Sarah's voice had that edge, when she asked if I'd be home for dinner, every time Emma called Mark instead of calling me, I opened my laptop. The response took me 20 minutes to write. I kept it simple, professional, the kind of email that didn't reveal that I was making one of the biggest decisions of my life while my wife slept upstairs dreaming of Christmas in Aspen with her ex-husband. Richard, thank you for your patience with my previous hesitation. I'm writing to formally accept the Tokyo position. I understand the start date would be January 2nd, and I'm prepared to relocate on whatever timeline works best for the transition. Please send over the contract and relocation details. Best, David. I hit send before I could second guess it. The snow was still falling. The kitchen was still silent, but something had shifted, like a weight I'd been carrying had finally been set down. I didn't go upstairs to bed. Instead, I opened a new browser window and searched for flights to Tokyo. One way, departing December 23rd, the same day, Sarah and Emma would be heading to Aspen. There was a seat available, first class. I didn't hesitate. Then, I did something I hadn't done in years. I closed my laptop, turned off my phone, and sat in the quiet of my kitchen, watching the snow fall and thinking about what it meant to be present, really present, not just physically there, but emotionally invested, mentally engaged, spiritually connected. I thought about the last time Emma had really looked at me. The last time she'd run to me instead of past me. I thought about when Sarah had stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings. When her I love you had become automatic instead of intentional. I thought about how I believed that providing was the same as loving, that working hard was the same as showing up, that paying for a life was the same as living one. And I realized, sitting there in the expensive kitchen of my expensive house, with my expensive coffee gone cold in my expensive mug, that Sarah was right about one thing. I hadn't been present. But the question that kept me awake until dawn wasn't whether I could change. It was whether she'd been telling the truth about what Emma needed or whether she'd been telling the truth about what she wanted because I'd seen the way she said Mark's name. I'd heard the warmth in her voice when she talked about him. I'd noticed the things a husband notices when he's losing his wife, even if he's been too busy to admit it. The snow stopped falling just before sunrise. The world outside was pristine, untouched, white, and clean and new. I made fresh coffee and watched the sun come up over our neighborhood, over the houses full of families who maybe had their own secrets, their own silences, their own versions of coming apart. My phone buzzed at 6:30. An email from Richard. Contract attached. Welcome to Tokyo, David. You're making the right choice. I wondered if that was true. I wondered if there was a right choice in any of this or just different kinds of endings. Upstairs, I heard Sarah's alarm go off. Heard her moving around, getting ready for her day, getting ready to take our daughter or my daughter, even if not legally, to look at private schools with her ex-husband. I saved the Tokyo contract to my desktop without opening it. There would be time for that later. For now, I had exactly 7 days to figure out how to disappear for my own life, 7 days to pack up 8 years of marriage, 7 years of fatherhood, and everything I thought I knew about who I was supposed to be. 7 days before Sarah would come home to an empty house and a note on the kitchen table. Before she would finally understand that some ultimatums don't go the way you expect. 7 days before she would call me in a panic, her voice breaking in ways I'd never heard before. Saying words I'd never imagined she would say. But I didn't know that yet. All I knew was the snow had stopped falling. The sun was coming up and I had a flight to book. The thing about dismantling a life is that it's remarkably easy when no one's paying attention. I started on Monday morning, the day after Sarah's ultimatum. She left early coffee with Mark to discuss Emma's school options, she said. Like that was perfectly normal, like my input wasn't needed. Emma had already left for school. The house was mine. I stood in my home office, coffee in hand, and looked at 8 years of accumulated existence. Degrees on the wall from Columbia and Wharton, photos from corporate events, the Crystal Award I'd gotten for closing the Henderson deal. All of it carefully curated, professionally framed, meaningfully meaningless. My phone rang. Richard Chen, David, got your acceptance. Fantastic news. His voice had that early morning energy of someone calling from 13 hours ahead. I'm sending over the relocation team's contact info. They'll handle everything. Shipping, housing setup, visa processing. When were you thinking of arriving? I looked at my calendar at the red block Sarah had marked for December 23rd through January 6th. Aspen holiday, it said in her handwriting, like I was invited, like I was part of it. December 23rd, I said. I'd like to be settled before the new year. There was a pause. Richard was smart enough to read between lines. That's quite soon. Are you sure the holidays can be? I'm sure. All right, then. I'll have the team reach out today. David, I know this is a big move, but Tokyo is going to be good for you. Different pace, different priorities. The office culture there, we actually go home at reasonable hours. Family time is protected. Weekends are sacred. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was running away from a family that didn't want me there, to a place that valued family time. That sounds perfect, I said, and meant it. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and started making lists. The rational part of my brain, the analyst part needed structure. Needed to break this impossible thing into manageable pieces. Things to do: contact lawyer, separate finances, pack essentials, arrange storage for everything else, close joint accounts, transfer utilities to Sarah's name, update will and beneficiaries, write the letter. That last one sat there on the screen, blinking at me. The letter. What do you say to someone who's already left you? Even though she's still sleeping in your bed. What do you say to a child you've loved as your own who's already chosen someone else? My phone buzzed. The relocation team. I spent 2 hours on the phone with them, arranging for movers to come on Friday, the day Sarah and Emma would be out looking at that private school in Connecticut. Everything I wanted to keep would go into a storage unit. Everything else would stay in the house for Sarah to deal with however she wanted, and the timeline is firm. The coordinator asked. You'll be ready to fly out on the 23rd. Firm, I confirmed. Excellent. We'll have your apartment in Shibuya ready. 3-bedroom? As requested. Actually, make it a 1-bedroom. I won't need the space. Another pause. Another unasked question. Of course, I'll update the request. I spent Monday afternoon at my lawyer's office. Jonathan Park had handled our estate planning when Sarah and I got married. He looked older now, grayer, but his eyes were still sharp. Divorce? He asked when I explained why I was there. Eventually, right now, I just want to protect myself. Separate the finances cleanly. Jonathan leaned back in his chair studying me. You know, I have to ask. Is there someone else? Because if Sarah's going to claim, there's no one else, I said. There's barely been me and her for the last year, if I'm being honest. He nodded slowly. And the child, Emma, not legally mine. Sarah made that very clear. But you've been her father figure for 7 years. You could make a case for visitation. Maybe even partial custody depending on no. The word came out harder than I intended. Sarah's right. Emma needs stability. A custody battle would destroy that. I'm not going to put her through that. Jonathan's expression softened. That's admirable, David. Stupid, maybe, but admirable. I laughed short and bitter. Story of my life. We spent the next hour setting up a legal framework. Separate bank account in my name only. Transferred from our joint savings. My contributions over the years. Tracked and documented. Updated beneficiaries on all my accounts. Removing Sarah. A new will. A power of attorney that didn't include my wife. The house? Jonathan asked. It's in both our names. I'll sign over my half. Consider it settlement in advance. David, that house is worth close to $2 million. You're just going to give her your half. I thought about Emma's room painted purple because it was her favorite color. I thought about the backyard where I'd taught her to ride a bike. The kitchen where we'd made pancakes on Saturday mornings before I started working Saturdays, too. Yes, I said. I'm just going to give her my half. Jonathan made notes, his pen scratching across legal pads. What about alimony? You've been the primary earner. She could let her try. I've kept records of every deposit into our joint account, every bill I've paid, every expense I've covered. If she wants to go that route, we can talk about how much of my income went to funding her lifestyle while she rekindled things with her ex. That got his attention. You have proof of an affair. I have proof of patterns, unexplained absences, increased spending on appearance, a sudden interest in activities that align with Mark's interests, text messages on the phone bill. Nothing explicit, but frequent. Very frequent. Jonathan was quiet for a moment. You know, if you wanted to fight this, I don't want to fight. I want to leave cleanly. I want her to wake up one day and realize what she threw away. And I want to be too far away for her to reach me when she does. He studied me with something like respect. Tokyo, you said. Tokyo. Well then. He gathered his papers. Let's make sure you leave with everything you're entitled to. I left his office with a folder full of documents and a strange sense of clarity. The kind of clarity that comes from accepting the inevitable. From stop fighting against the current and just letting it carry you wherever it's going to go. Tuesday, I worked from home. Sarah barely noticed. She was busy with her own preparations, packing for Aspen, texting constantly with someone who made her smile in ways I couldn't remember her smiling at me. Emma came home from school and found me in my office. Dad, she said, and my heart broke a little because she still called me that. Still didn't know this was all ending. Can you help me with my math homework? I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen, a financial analysis that could wait, that would always wait because there would always be another one. I looked at my daughter standing in the doorway with her backpack and her earnest expression in her mother's eyes. Of course, I said, and closed my laptop. We sat at the kitchen table, working through word problems about trains leaving stations and fractions of pizzas. She was smart, quick with numbers, and I felt a surge of pride that I had no right to feel because I wasn't really her father, was I? I was just the man who'd been there, the man who'd been convenient, the man who was about to disappear. Emma, I said carefully when we finished the last problem. You know I love you, right? She looked up at me with those serious 10-year-old eyes. I know, and you know that sometimes adults have to make difficult choices, but that doesn't mean the love goes away. Something flickered across her face. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. Are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hit me like a physical blow. Kids always know. They always sense when the ground is shifting beneath them. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe. But whatever happens, I want you to know that these years with you have been the best years of my life. She was quiet for a long moment. Then Mom says Mark is my real dad. Mark is your biological father. That's true, but you're my dad, too, aren't you? I pulled her into a hug. This child who I'd loved and raised and failed in ways I was only beginning to understand. I'll always be your dad, sweetheart, no matter what. She hugged me back tight and fierce. And I wondered if she knew somehow that this was goodbye. If some part of her understood that when she came back from Aspen, I'd be gone. Sarah found us like that when she came home carrying shopping bags from Nordstrom. Her expression went cold. Emma, go do your homework in your room. Emma pulled away from me reluctantly, gathering her books. She looked back once before heading upstairs, and I tried to memorize that look, that moment, because I didn't know when I'd see it again. Don't, Sarah said when Emma was gone. Don't what? Don't confuse her. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I stood up slowly, carefully, keeping my voice level. I was helping her with math homework. Is that not allowed now? You know what I mean? Don't try to guilt her about Aspen. Don't make her feel bad about wanting to spend time with Mark. I would never do that, wouldn't you? Sarah set her bags on the counter. Thousands of dollars worth of new ski clothes charged to our joint credit card. You're so good at the quiet martyr act, David, the long-suffering provider. But we both know the truth. You chose this. You chose work over us over and over again. If you've ever wanted to scream at someone to unleash years of frustration and hurt and anger, you know how it feels to swallow all of that down and stay calm. Stay rational. Stay controlled. You're right, I said quietly. I did choose work. I chose to build a career that could give us this life, this house, those clothes, that car in the driveway. I chose to provide because I thought that's what a husband does. What a father does. A father shows up, David. And what does a wife do, Sarah? Does she honor her commitments? Does she communicate when she's unhappy? Or does she reconnect with her ex-husband? Spend months laying groundwork and then issue an ultimatum on a Sunday night over cold coffee, her face flushed. This isn't about Mark, isn't it? This is about you never being here. About Emma, needing more than a bank account and a distracted nod when she tries to talk to you. You're right, I said again, and watched her blink in surprise. You're absolutely right. I wasn't present enough. I prioritized wrong. I made mistakes. She opened her mouth, closed it. She'd been ready for a fight and I wasn't giving her one. So that's it. She said finally. You're just admitting it. What would you like me to do, Sarah? Beg you not to go to Aspen? Forbid you from seeing Mark? Issue an ultimatum of my own? I picked up my coffee cup, rinsed it in the sink. You said if I didn't like it, I should divorce you. You made your position very clear. And what's your position? I dried my hands on the dish towel, taking my time, choosing my words carefully. My position is that I hope you and Emma have a wonderful Christmas. That I hope you find what you're looking for in Aspen. That's it. She sounded almost disappointed, like she'd wanted the fight, wanted the drama, wanted me to give her a reason to justify what she was doing. That's it. I walked past her, heading toward my office. She caught my arm. David, she stopped, searching for words. I didn't want it to be like this. I looked at her hand on my arm at the rings. She still wore the engagement ring with the 2-carat diamond I'd saved for months to buy the wedding band we'd chosen together. I looked at her face, still beautiful, still familiar, still the face of a stranger who happened to share my last name. How did you want it to be? I asked softly. She let go of my arm. I don't know. Different. Me too, I said, and meant it. That night, I slept in the guest room. Sarah didn't comment on it. Maybe she was relieved. Wednesday, the movers came to give an estimate. I showed them what would go to storage, my clothes, my books, my personal items. Not much, really. For 8 years of marriage, everything else could stay. You're not taking the furniture? The foreman asked, looking around my office. No, just what's mine and the art? Some of these pieces look valuable. I glanced at the walls. An abstract piece Sarah had bought at a gallery opening. A landscape from our honeymoon in Tuscany. None of it meant anything to me anymore. Leave it all. Thursday, I went into the office to tie up loose ends. My team was surprised when I announced I was transferring to Tokyo. Effective immediately. But the Henderson follow-up, Janet said, her face falling. We were supposed to present in February. You'll present in February. You've done most of the work anyway. I paused, searching for the word. Overshadowing you. This is your chance to step up. She looked uncertain but pleased. When do you leave? Monday. The shock rippled through the conference room. Monday. 5 days. Impossible. Except it wasn't impossible. It was just decisive. I spent Thursday afternoon writing transition memos, delegating responsibilities, ensuring nothing I'd been working on would fall through the cracks. The work that had consumed so much of my life, that had cost me so much, turned out to be remarkably transferable, replaceable, just like me. Friday morning, Sarah and Emma left early for their Connecticut school tour. Sarah barely said goodbye. Emma hugged me tight. See you Sunday, Dad. She said, see you Sunday, sweetheart. It was a lie. By Sunday, I'd be 30,000 feet over the Pacific. The movers came at 9. By 3 o'clock, everything that was mine was in storage or packed for shipping to Tokyo. The house looked exactly the same, except for the empty spaces in my closet. The bare spots on my bookshelf in the office, the missing toiletries from my bathroom. Sarah probably wouldn't even notice. I spent Friday night in a hotel near JFK. Saturday, I ran final errands, closed the joint accounts, transferred utilities, signed the house over to Sarah with Jonathan witnessing. Everything legal, everything documented, everything clean. Saturday night, I sat in that hotel room with a glass of whiskey and wrote 2 letters. The first one was for Sarah. I kept it simple, factual. No accusations, no bitterness, just information. I'd accepted the Tokyo position. I'd be gone indefinitely. Here were my lawyer's contact details. Here was my new email address. The house was hers. I wished her well. I didn't mention Mark. I didn't mention the affair that wasn't quite an affair, but was close enough to count. I didn't mention the months of distance. The careful way she'd engineered this whole situation. I just gave her what she'd asked for. An exit. The second letter was for Emma. That one was harder. That one took 3 drafts and a second glass of whiskey. Dear Emma, I want you to know that leaving has nothing to do with you. You are smart and kind and funny, and being your dad has been the greatest honor of my life. Sometimes adults make choices that are hard to understand. Sometimes we have to go far away to figure out how to be better. That's what I'm doing. I love you. I will always love you. No matter how far away I am, no matter how much time passes, that will never change. Be good for your mom. Work hard in school. Keep being exactly who you are. Love always, Dad. I sealed both letters in separate envelopes. Left them on the hotel desk where I'd find them in the morning where I wouldn't lose my nerve. Sunday morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. Sarah. I almost didn't answer. Then I thought maybe something had happened to Emma. Hello, David. Hi. Her voice was strange, tight. I just wanted to check you're still okay with us leaving Monday morning for Aspen, because if you've changed your mind about the divorce thing, I haven't changed my mind. Have a wonderful trip. Oh, okay. She sounded almost disappointed. You'll be here when we get back. January 6th. I looked at my plane ticket on the desk. Japan Airlines Flight 006 departing Monday at 6 p.m. Sure, I lied. Okay. Well, I guess we'll see you then. Have a good flight, I said and hung up. I sat there for a long time, looking at those 2 letters, thinking about the family I'd built and lost and failed, thinking about the man I'd been and the man I was about to become. Then, I ordered room service breakfast and started preparing for the last day of my old life. Tomorrow, I would drive to my house at noon while Sarah and Emma were still packing for Aspen. I would leave the letters on the kitchen table. I would take one last look at the home I'd bought and the life I'd built. And then I would drive to JFK, board a plane, and disappear into the sky. But I didn't know yet what would happen after that. I didn't know about the phone call that would come a week later, about Sarah's voice breaking in ways I'd never heard before. All I knew was that I'd made my choice, and there was no going back. Monday morning arrived cold and crystalline, the kind of December day that looks beautiful in photos but cuts right through you when you step outside. I checked out of the hotel at 10 o'clock. The clerk asked if I'd enjoyed my stay and I said yes, because that's what you say even when you've spent the weekend dismantling your entire existence in a corporate hotel room that smelled like generic air freshener and other people's disappointments. The drive to my house to Sarah's house now really took 40 minutes. I kept the radio off. Silence felt appropriate. Final. If you've ever returned to a place that used to be home but isn't anymore. You know that feeling, that strange displacement, like you're a ghost haunting your own life. I pulled into the driveway at 11:30 and the house looked exactly the same. Same wreaths on the door that Sarah had hung the week before. Same icicle lights along the roof line. Same Mercedes SUV parked where it always was. Waiting to take my wife and daughter to the airport and then to Aspen and then to whatever came next. I used my keys, soon to be just a piece of metal with no purpose, and stepped inside. The house was chaos. Suitcases everywhere. Emma's ski gear piled by the door. Sarah's voice floating down from upstairs, sharp with stress. Emma, I said, pack warm pajamas. Not every stuffed animal you own, but Snowball needs to come. And Mr. for Whiskers. They'll be lonely, normal family sounds. The kind of sounds that happen in houses across America every day. The kind of sounds I would have found annoying 2 weeks ago when I still thought I was part of this. I stood in the foyer listening, memorizing. Then I walked to the kitchen. The kitchen where I'd received Sarah's ultimatum. The kitchen where I'd made my decision. The kitchen where I was about to end everything. Without a single raised voice. I set the 2 letters on the table, white envelopes, crisp and official, Sarah's name on one, Emma's on the other, my handwriting, careful and clear. For a moment, I considered adding more. A longer explanation, a defense of my choices, a list of all the things I'd sacrificed, all the hours I'd worked, all the ways I'd tried to build a life worth living. But what was the point? Sarah had made up her mind. Emma was 10 years old and caught in the middle of adult complications. She shouldn't have to navigate. More words wouldn't change anything. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Sarah's voice closer now. Emma, go make sure you have your charger and your headphones. You know how you get on long flights without. She stopped when she saw me. We looked at each other across the kitchen, across 8 years of marriage and months of unraveling in a gulf that had become too wide to bridge. She was dressed for travel. Designer jeans, cashmere sweater, her hair pulled back in that effortless way that actually took effort. She looked good, happy, even lighter than I'd seen her look in months. David, she said. You're home. Just came to get a few things I forgot. Her eyes went to the letters on the table. What's that? Just some paperwork. Nothing urgent. Emma bounded into the kitchen before Sarah could ask more questions, her backpack trailing behind her. Dad? She crashed into me with the full force of a 10-year-old who hadn't learned to be guarded yet. I didn't know you'd be here. Are you coming to the airport with us? I hugged her tight, breathing in her strawberry shampoo, the fabric softener smell of her favorite hoodie, trying to memorize the weight of her in my arms. Can't, sweetheart. Work call. But I wanted to say goodbye. It's just 2 weeks, she said, pulling back to look at me. We'll be back before you know it. 2 weeks? She didn't know that. 2 weeks from now, I'd be 10,000 miles away. That by the time she came back from Aspen, the only father she'd really known would be gone. You're going to have such an amazing time, I said, keeping my voice steady. Promise me you'll be careful on the slopes and listen to your mom. And Mark, Sarah interjected. Mark's an expert skier. He'll make sure she's safe. Of course he would. Mark, the expert skier. Mark, who had time for ski trips and school tours. Mark, who was everything I apparently wasn't. And Mark, I agreed. Emma studied my face with that uncanny perception kids have. Are you okay, Dad? You look sad. Just going to miss you, I said truthfully. But I'm happy you're going on this adventure. Sarah checked her watch. Emma, go do one final check of your room. Make sure you didn't forget anything. Emma hesitated, looking between us. That look again like she knew something was wrong, but couldn't quite name it. Go on, I said gently. I'll still be here when you come down. She hugged me once more, quick and fierce, then bounded back upstairs. Sarah and I stood in the kitchen, silent. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked. You didn't have to come, Sarah said finally. We talked yesterday. You said you were fine with everything. I am fine with everything. Then why are you here? I looked at her. Really looked at her maybe for the last time. Tried to remember when I'd fallen in love with her. Tried to remember the woman who'd laughed at my jokes. Who'd said yes when I proposed on that beach in Maui. Who'd promised forever and meant it. At least in that moment. I wanted to say goodbye, I said simply. Something flickered in her expression. Guilt maybe or uncertainty. David, it's just 2 weeks. You're being dramatic. If you've ever swallowed words that would change everything, you know how they feel in your throat. Heavy, necessary, impossible to keep down, but terrifying to release. I almost told her then. Almost said, I'm leaving. I'm going to Tokyo. By the time you land in Aspen, I'll be gone. Those letters on the table will explain everything. But Emma was upstairs. Emma would hear. Emma would be hurt in ways I couldn't predict or prevent. So instead, I said, you're right. Just 2 weeks. Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her whole face changed, softened. That smile I used to inspire but hadn't seen in months. Mark's at the airport, she said. He wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for security. Of course, he did. Thoughtful Mark. Present Mark. Mark who showed up. You should get going then, I said. She looked at me and for a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw something like regret, like she was realizing this was a threshold. And once crossed, there would be no going back. David, she stopped. Started again. I know this year has been hard. I know we've grown apart, but maybe when we get back, we could try counseling. If you're willing to make some changes, if you can commit to being more present, Sarah, I interrupted gently. Go to Aspen, spend Christmas with Mark, figure out what you want, really want, and then we'll talk when you get back. It wasn't a lie. We would talk. It just wouldn't be the conversation she was expecting. Emma came thundering back down the stairs, dragging her suitcase. Ready? Sarah looked at me for another long moment, then nodded. Okay, we'll talk when I get back. I helped them load the car, made small talk about flight times and weather in Aspen and whether Emma had her motion sickness medicine. Normal things, dad things, last things. When everything was packed, Emma hugged me one more time. Love you, Dad, she said into my chest. Love you too, sweetheart, so much. Sarah got in the driver's seat, started the engine. I stood in the driveway watching them back out, watching Emma wave from the window, her smile wide and excited and unknowing. I waved back until they turned the corner and disappeared. Then I stood there in the December cold in the driveway of a house that wasn't mine anymore and felt the finality of it settle over me like snow. I went back inside, walked through the rooms one last time, the living room where we'd hosted dinner parties, the office where I'd spent so many late nights working, the guest room where I'd been sleeping for the past week, Emma's room, purple walls and posters of pop stars, and a shelf full of books we'd read together. I didn't take anything. Everything I needed was already in storage or on its way to Tokyo. Everything else was just things expensive, meaningless things that had somehow become substitutes for actual connection. I locked the door behind me at 115, put my key in the mailbox, got in my car, not the Mercedes, just the practical Honda I'd bought years ago and kept because it was reliable, and drove away. I didn't look back. There was nothing to see. The drive to JFK took 90 minutes. I checked in at 3:30 for my 6:00 p.m. flight. The agent looked at my single carry-on bag with surprise. Just the one bag for Tokyo? She asked. I travel light, I said. She upgraded me to business class. Some algorithm had flagged me as a priority passenger, probably because of how much I'd flown over the years for work. The irony wasn't lost on me. I went through security, bought a coffee I didn't drink, and sat at the gate watching people, families heading to Christmas vacations, business travelers like me, or like I used to be. A young couple holding hands, excited about some adventure. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah made it through security. Flight boards in 20. Thanks for understanding about Aspen. I think this will be good for all of us. I stared at that message for a long time. Good for all of us. Like my absence was a gift. Like removing me from the equation would solve everything. I typed back, safe travels. Give Emma a hug for me. Then I turned off my phone. Not just silenced. It actually powered it down. In 12 hours, I'd be in Tokyo in a different time zone, a different life, a different version of myself. They called my flight at 5:30. I was one of the first to board. Settling into my business class seat while other passengers filed past. I accepted champagne from the flight attendant. Declined the warm nuts. Stared out the window at the darkening New York sky. The flight attendant came by with a warm towel. First time to Tokyo? She asked in accented English. Yes, I said. Then, no, I don't know. She smiled kindly like she'd heard stranger answers. Well, welcome aboard. The plane pushed back from the gate at 6:05. We taxied to the runway while the safety video played on screens, showing us how to brace for impact, where the exits were, how to survive a crash into the ocean. Survival instructions. How appropriate. If you've ever left everything behind, not just a place, but a whole identity, a whole understanding of who you were supposed to be, you know that moment when the wheels leave the ground. That moment when it becomes real, irreversible, done. We lifted off at 623. New York fell away beneath us. Light spreading out in every direction. Millions of people living their lives, having their own quiet dramas and loud disasters and everything in between. Sarah and Emma would be in the air too by now, flying west to Aspen while I flew east to Tokyo. Both of us leaving, neither of us knowing we were moving in opposite directions in more ways than one. I pulled out my laptop once we reached cruising altitude, opened the folder with the Tokyo contract, read through it properly for the first time, seeing the details I'd been too numb to process before. The salary was absurd. The benefits were generous. The apartment in Shibuya was fully furnished. I'd have a corporate car service, a relocation specialist to help me navigate Japanese bureaucracy, language lessons, cultural training, everything I needed to start over, everything except a reason why. A message popped up in my inbox. Richard Chen, even though it was morning in Tokyo and he should have been in the office, David saw you're en route. Welcome. Kenji from our team will meet you at Haneda. He'll get you settled. Take a few days to adjust to the time difference before coming in. Looking forward to working with you, I typed back. Thank you. See you soon. The flight attendant brought dinner. Some gourmet thing with too many components. I pushed it around my plate, ate a few bites, gave up, accepted more champagne, even though I shouldn't. The bubbles felt appropriate, celebratory, even though there was nothing to celebrate. Or maybe there was. Maybe freedom was worth celebrating even when it felt like failure. Around hour 3 of the flight, somewhere over Alaska, I pulled out the leather notebook I bought at the airport, opened to a blank page, stared at it. What do you write when your whole life has just ended? What wisdom do you record? What lessons have you learned? I wrote day 1. Then I stopped because what did that even mean? Day 1 of what? Day 1 of running away? Day 1 of Tokyo? Day 1 of figuring out who David Chen was when he wasn't someone's husband or someone's father or someone's employee. I closed the notebook, looked out the window at the darkness, at the wing, cutting through the night at the tiny lights below that might have been cities or stars or just reflections in the glass. My seatmate, a Japanese businessman who'd been working on his laptop, glanced over. First trip to Japan? He asked in perfect English. Yes, I said. Business or pleasure? I considered the question. Escape, I said finally. He laughed, thinking I was joking. Ah, yes. Tokyo is good for that. Very easy to disappear there. 13 million people. You can be anyone. Anyone. The word hung in the air between us. That's exactly what I'm hoping for, I said. He nodded sagely like he understood, though he couldn't possibly. Then he went back to his laptop and I went back to staring out the window. The flight passed in that strange timeless way long flights do. I slept in fits and starts, waking to see other passengers sleeping or watching movies or reading. Anonymous people on an anonymous flight. All of us suspended between places, between versions of ourselves. They served breakfast somewhere over the Pacific. Miso soup and rice and grilled fish. It was good. Better than the dinner. Or maybe I was just hungry enough to appreciate it. The pilot announced our descent into Tokyo at what my body insisted was the middle of the night, but was actually early morning local time. The sun was rising as we broke through the clouds, painting everything gold and pink and new. Tokyo sprawled below us, massive, dense, overwhelming. A city so big that my problems would be microscopic in it. A place where nobody knew my name or my story or the ways I'd failed. We touched down at 7:15 a.m. Tuesday, December 24th. Christmas Eve in Tokyo. Though Christmas wasn't really celebrated here the way it was in America. Just another day, just another beginning. I cleared customs, collected my bag, and found Kenji waiting with a sign that said, David Chen, Mercer, and Klein. Chen-san, he said, bowing slightly. Welcome to Tokyo. How was your flight? Long, I said, but you must be tired. I'll take you to your apartment. You can rest. Settle in. Tomorrow is Christmas. The office is closed. So, you have time to adjust. Christmas. I'd almost forgotten. Sarah and Emma would be waking up in Aspen tomorrow morning, opening presents under someone else's tree, making memories with Mark, the real father figure, living their best lives without me. And I would be here alone in a Tokyo apartment half a world away. Kenji drove us into the city through morning traffic. Tokyo was overwhelming, neon and concrete and crowds even at this early hour. Everything was in Japanese. Everything was foreign. Everything was exactly what I needed. The apartment was in a modern high-rise in Shibuya. 23rd floor, minimalist and clean and empty in the best way. No history, no memories, no ghosts. The fridge is stocked with basics. Kenji said, here's my card. Call if you need anything. Really, anything. That's my job. He left me there in the silence, in the emptiness. In the aftermath of the biggest decision I'd ever made, I stood at the window looking out at Tokyo, spreading in every direction. Millions of lives, millions of stories. Mine just one more. And not even an interesting one. My phone was still off. I'd turned it back on when we landed, just long enough to text Richard that I'd arrived safely, then back off. I didn't want to know if Sarah had texted. Didn't want to see messages asking where I was, why I wasn't answering, what was going on. Let her land in Aspen first. Let her settle in with Mark and Emma. Let her have a few days of her perfect Christmas before reality caught up, because it would catch up. She'd call the house and I wouldn't answer. She'd worry. She'd call my cell and it would go to voicemail. She'd drive home early to check on me and she'd find those letters on the kitchen table. But that was days away, maybe a week. For now, I was just tired, jet-lagged and heartsick and free in a way that felt more like falling than flying. I unpacked my single bag, took a shower in the pristine bathroom, collapsed into the bed that smelled like nothing. In the apartment that held no memories, in the city where no one knew my name, and for the first time in weeks, I slept. I woke up disoriented, my body insisting it was the middle of the night while sunlight streamed through unfamiliar windows. The clock on the nightstand said 2:47 p.m. I'd slept for 6 hours. Outside, Tokyo hummed with afternoon energy traffic. Voices, the constant white noise of a city that never quite stops moving. Christmas Eve, December 24th. I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, waiting to feel something. Regret, guilt, panic, relief, anything. Instead, I felt hollow, like I'd left so much of myself behind that what arrived in Tokyo was just a shell, a placeholder, a man-shaped space waiting to be filled with something new. My phone sat on the nightstand, still powered off. I looked at it like it was a bomb. Schortinger's phone, as long as I didn't turn it on, Sarah both had and hadn't found the letters. Both was and wasn't in Aspen wondering where I'd gone. Both did and didn't know her marriage was over. I left it off. Instead, I got up, showered again. The hot water felt like absolution and explored my new apartment properly. It was beautiful in that deliberate, curated way. Everything matched. Everything was new. The kitchen was fully equipped with appliances I didn't know how to use. The living room had a couch I'd never sat on, a TV I'd never watched. The second bedroom was set up as an office with a desk and ergonomic chair and a view of the Shibuya crossing. I stood at that window for a while watching the famous intersection. Hundreds of people crossing every time the light changed. Moving in organized chaos. Everyone knowing where they were going. Everyone except me. The fridge, as Kenji had promised, was stocked. Japanese staples I didn't recognize. Rice, miso paste, fish, vegetables, also some Western concessions, eggs, milk, bread, butter, provisions for a man starting over. I made coffee in the high-tech coffee maker, Got it wrong twice before producing something drinkable, and sat at the kitchen counter watching Tokyo move beneath me. If you've ever experienced that strange displacement of jet lag combined with emotional upheaval, you know how reality gets soft around the edges. How time stops making sense. How you can't quite believe you're where you're doing what you're doing. I'd left New York 30 hours ago. In that time, I'd crossed an ocean in 13 hours and the boundary between one life and another. And now here I was drinking mediocre coffee in a pristine apartment while somewhere over the Pacific or maybe already in Aspen. My wife and daughter were living their lives without me. My phone stayed off. I spent the afternoon doing nothing, staring out windows, unpacking and repacking my single bag, reading the employee handbook Mercer and Klein had left in the apartment. Learning that Tokyo office hours were 9 to 5, that overtime was discouraged, that there was a company gym and subsidized lunch and mandatory vacation days, a different world, a different culture, a different understanding of what it meant to work, to live, to balance everything I'd thought I wanted while destroying my marriage by not having it. Evening came early. It was winter and Tokyo was dark by 5. I ventured out, mostly because staying in the apartment felt like hiding, and I wasn't ready to admit that's what I was doing. Shibuya at night was overwhelming. Neon everywhere, people everywhere, sounds and smells and stimulation that my jet-lagged brain couldn't quite process. I walked without direction, letting the crowd carry me. A foreigner in every sense. Alone in a sea of people, I found a small restaurant down a side street, the kind with a curtain over the door and no English on the menu. The chef looked up when I entered, nodded, gestured to a seat at the counter. I pointed at what the person next to me was eating ramen, it turned out, and he nodded again. Went to work. The ramen came 10 minutes later. It was the best thing I'd eaten in months, maybe years. Rich broth, perfect noodles, pork that melted on my tongue. I ate in silence, surrounded by people speaking a language I didn't understand and felt more at peace than I had in my own home. When I finished, I tried to pay, fumbling with yen I'd exchanged at the airport. The chef waved away my attempt at, thanks, just nodded again with that same quiet courtesy. I walked back to my apartment through streets that were still crowded at 9 p.m. Bought a beer from a vending machine because you could do that here. Buy beer from machines on street corners and rode the elevator up to the 23rd floor. The apartment was exactly as I'd left it, silent, clean, empty. I drank the beer, standing at the window, watching Tokyo live its life below me. Somewhere in that sprawl of lights were 13 million stories. Marriages and divorces and births and deaths and everything in between. My story wasn't special. It was barely worth noting. That thought was somehow comforting. I turned on my laptop, not my phone. Not yet, and checked my email. Work stuff mostly. Richard welcoming me again. The relocation team confirming everything was satisfactory. HR sending onboarding documents and one from Jonathan, my lawyer, with a subject line that said simply, ready when you are. I opened it. David, all documents are prepared and filed. When you're ready to proceed with the divorce paperwork, just give me the word. Everything is in order. The house transfer is recorded. Your accounts are separate and secure. You're protected. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Sometimes the bravest choice is the quietest one. Best, Jonathan. I read it twice. Then I wrote back. Jonathan, hold everything for now. Let's see what happens when she finds the letters. I'll be in touch, David. Because I wasn't a coward. Despite evidence to the contrary. I'd left. Yes. I'd disappeared. Yes. But I'd left those letters. I'd left an explanation. I'd given her the truth, even if I delivered it in the most passive way possible. I finished my beer, took another shower the third of the day, but the hot water helped ground me, put on clean clothes, stood at that window again, watching the city lights blur into constellations. And then at 11 p.m. Tokyo time, which was 9 a.m. Eastern, which meant Sarah and Emma would have landed in Aspen hours ago, I turned on my phone. It took a moment to connect, to sync, to download the inevitable flood of messages. Then it started texts from Sarah. 23 of them. I read them in order, watching my marriage end in real time in short bursts of increasingly frantic text. 9:47 a.m. landed. Flight was smooth. Emma slept most of the way. 10:15 a.m. Mark picked us up. He rented an amazing SUV. Very thoughtful. 11:23 a.m. just got to the cabin. David, it's gorgeous. You would love it. Well, if you ever took time to actually vacation. That last parenthetical hit different when you knew what was coming. 2:34 p.m. settled in. Going to hit the slopes for a few hours. Emma is so excited. 6:47 p.m. Great first day. Emma did amazing. Mark is such a good teacher. 7:15 p.m. Making dinner. Tried calling you. Go straight to voicemail. Everything okay? 9:30 p.m. David, seriously, why isn't your phone on? I'm starting to worry. 10:45 p.m. Called the house. No answer. Are you working late on Christmas Eve? Really? Then nothing for a few hours. I imagined her going to bed annoyed, but not truly worried. Irritated at my typical behavior. My typical absence. Then this morning, Christmas Day in Aspen. 7:12 a.m. Merry Christmas. Still can't reach you. This isn't funny. 8:33 a.m. David, I'm actually getting worried now. Can you please just text me back? 9:15 a.m. Called your office. They said you took leave. Leave? Since when? 102 a.m. I called Janet. She said, you transferred to Tokyo. Tokyo? What the hell is going on? 10:47 a.m. I'm coming home. Something is wrong. This isn't like you. 11:15 a.m. Mark thinks I'm overreacting, but I know you. You wouldn't just leave without telling me. Did something happen? Are you in the hospital? 12:23 p.m. On my way to the airport. Emma is staying with Mark. I'm coming home to check on you. 1:45 p.m. Flight leaves at 3. I'll be home by midnight. David, please, if you get this, just let me know you're alive. I looked at the timestamp on that last message. She'd sent it 4 hours ago. She was probably boarding now. Would be in the air soon. Would land at JFK around midnight Eastern, which was tomorrow afternoon, Tokyo time. She'd go to the house. She'd find the letters and then she'd know. My hands were shaking. I set the phone down, picked it up again, set it down. I should call her. I should text her back. I should tell her I was fine. That she didn't need to fly home on Christmas. That everything would be explained when she got there. But I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. The courage wouldn't materialize. Instead, I did what cowards do. I waited. I opened a browser and searched for flights from Aspen to New York. Found the one she must be on. United 1847. Scheduled to land at 11:47 p.m. Eastern. I did the math. That was 1:47 p.m. tomorrow, Tokyo time. In about 14 hours, she'd land. In 15 hours, she'd be home. In 16 hours, she'd read my letter, and then my phone would explode. I poured myself a whiskey from the bottle I'd bought at duty free. Sat at that window again with my phone in one hand and my drink in the other, watching Tokyo celebrate Christmas in its understated way. The phone buzzed. A voicemail notification from an hour ago when I'd had it off. I played it. Sarah's voice tight with worry. David, I don't know what's going on, but I'm scared. This isn't like you. Please, please, just call me. I don't care if you're angry about Aspen. I don't care about any of it. I just need to know you're okay. I'm coming home. I'll be there tonight. Just please be there. The message ended. I played it again. Heard the fear in her voice, the genuine concern. If you've ever wanted to take something back, to undo a decision, to rewind time and choose differently. You know how it feels. That desperate, impossible wish. But time only moves forward. Planes only fly one way. Letters once left can't be unwritten. I thought about Emma spending Christmas with Mark while her mother flew home in a panic. I thought about Sarah on that plane, imagining worst-case scenarios. I thought about the letter waiting on our kitchen table. The words I'd written in a hotel room that felt like years ago now. Sarah, by the time you read this, I'll be in Tokyo. I've accepted a transfer that I should have accepted years ago. Except I thought I had something here worth staying for. I was wrong. Not about Emma. She's the best thing that ever happened to me, even if she was never legally mine. And not about you. At least not at first. I loved you. I probably still love you in the way you love something you've lost. But you were right. I wasn't present. I chose work over family. I prioritized wrong. I failed. And you chose Mark. Maybe you never stopped choosing Mark. Maybe I was just the convenient option, the stable one, the one who paid the bills while you figured out what you really wanted. I'm giving you what you asked for. A divorce, freedom, the house, everything in it. I've already signed over my half. My lawyer will be in touch with the paperwork. Tell Emma I love her. Tell her this wasn't her fault. Tell her whatever you need to tell her to make this easier. I hope you find what you're looking for in Aspen. I hope Mark is everything I wasn't. David, reading it now from half a world away, it seemed harsh, cold, not at all what I'd meant to convey. But it was too late. The letter was there. Sarah was in the air. The clock was ticking toward a moment I couldn't stop and wasn't sure I wanted to. I finished my whiskey, poured another, watched Tokyo blur into abstract light. My phone buzzed again. A text from Emma. Dad, where are you? Mom left really fast and won't tell me what's wrong. She said you're okay, but she looked really scared. Are you okay? Merry Christmas. I miss you. I stared at that message for a long time. Sweet Emma. Confused Emma. Emma, who'd been looking forward to Christmas in Aspen and now had her mother flying home in a panic and her father, her not legally father, gone silent. I wrote back, I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm sorry your Christmas got complicated. This is between your mom and me. You didn't do anything wrong. I love you. Have fun with Mark. I sent it before I could reconsider. Before I could add more, explain more, make promises I didn't know if I could keep. The message showed as delivered, then read. Then 3 dots appeared as she typed. Are you and mom getting divorced? Kids always know. They always see through the adult lies and complications to the simple truth beneath. I don't know yet, I wrote. Maybe. I'm sorry. It's okay. I kind of knew you guys haven't been happy for a while. Out of the mouths of babes. 10 years old and already more perceptive than either of her parents gave her credit for. You're very smart. I texted back. I get it from you, she wrote. And mom says, I get my stubbornness from you, too. I laughed. Alone in my Tokyo apartment on Christmas night. She's probably right about that. Where are you? Mom said something about Tokyo. Yeah, I got a new job in Japan. That's so far away. Yeah. Will I ever see you again? The question broke something in me. Something I'd been holding together through sheer willpower and geographical distance. Of course you will. I promise. When things settle down, we'll figure it out. Another promise I didn't know if I could keep. Another assurance built on hope and uncertainty. Okay, I should go. Mark is making hot chocolate. Enjoy it. I love you, Emma. Love you too, Dad. The conversation ended. I sat there with my phone and my whiskey and my view of Tokyo, feeling the weight of what I'd done settle more heavily. I'd left. I'd run. I'd chosen the quiet exit over the loud fight. And now a 10-year-old girl was spending Christmas making hot chocolate with her biological father while her mother flew home in a panic. And her stepfather, former stepfather, drank alone half a world away. If you've ever questioned every choice that led you to a moment, you know how it compounds. Every decision, every priority, every time you chose wrong, stacking up like evidence against you. I should have fought for my marriage. Should have recognized the signs earlier. Should have made different choices about work-life balance. Should have been present. Really present. Not just physically there, but emotionally available. Should have. But I hadn't. And now here I was. I set an alarm for 3:00 p.m. the next day, midnight Eastern, when Sarah would be landing at JFK. I wanted to be awake for that. Wanted to be ready for whatever came next. Then I went to bed in my new Tokyo apartment on Christmas night, alone and free and terrified and relieved all at once. I didn't sleep well. Jet lag, yes, but also anticipation. Dread. The knowledge that in less than 12 hours, Sarah would know everything. Would read that letter, would understand that I hadn't just gone quiet, I'd gone completely. When I did sleep, I dreamed of Emma, of teaching her to ride a bike in our backyard, of her first day of school, of all the moments I'd been there for and all the ones I'd missed. I woke up at 2:47 p.m. to my alarm, groggy and disoriented. Made coffee, stood at my window, watching Tokyo move through its afternoon while half a world away. Sarah's plane descended toward JFK. My phone was silent. No new messages. She was in the air, unreachable, probably going crazy with worry and anger and confusion. At 3:15 p.m. Tokyo time, I checked the flight status. Landed early. She'd be in a cab soon. Would be home by 1:30 a.m. her time. Would walk into our dark house and find those letters on the kitchen table. I poured another coffee I didn't need. Paced my apartment. Checked my phone every 30 seconds, even though it hadn't made a sound. At 4:00 p.m. Tokyo time, 2 a.m. Eastern, I imagined her walking through the front door, seeing the letters, picking up hers with shaking hands. At 4:15, I imagined her reading it once, twice, 3 times, trying to make the words say something different than what they said. At 4:20, I waited for my phone to explode, but it stayed silent. 5 minutes passed. 10:15 nothing. And then at exactly 4:37 p.m. Tokyo time, my phone rang. Sarah. I stared at it, my heart pounding, my mouth dry. Let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then I answered, hello. And what I heard on the other end changed everything. David, her voice wasn't what I expected. No anger, no accusation, just my name, said like a prayer, like a plea, like the last word before drowning. Sarah, I said carefully. Silence. Not the angry kind, the breathing kind. The kind where someone is trying to hold themselves together and failing. I found your letter, she said finally. I know you're in Tokyo. Yes, you left. Her voice cracked on that last word. You just left. If you've ever had to defend the indefensible, you know how words fail, how explanations sound like excuses, how truth sounds like cruelty. You told me to, I said quietly. You said if I didn't like your arrangement with Mark, I should divorce you. So, I'm divorcing you. I heard her breath catch. Heard something that might have been a sob. Quickly stifled. I didn't mean it like that, she whispered. I didn't mean for you to actually. She stopped. Started again. David, I came home to an empty house. Your clothes are gone. Your office is cleared out. It's like you were never here. I was there for 8 years. Don't. Her voice hardened slightly. Don't do that. Don't make this about another pause. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you talk to me? When would you have liked me to talk to you, Sarah? Before or after you told me you and Emma were spending Christmas with your ex-husband? Before or after you said Emma needed a real father figure? Before or after you said if I didn't like it, I should divorce you? Silence again. Longer this time. I was angry. She said finally. I was frustrated. I didn't mean yes you did. I kept my voice even calm. The analyst voice, the voice that dealt in facts. You meant every word. You've been planning this for months. The increased time with Mark, the private school tours, the coffee dates that became ski lessons that became family dinners. You were building a new life, Sarah. You just wanted to keep the old one running in the background until the new one was ready. That's not fair, isn't it? I walked to the window, looked out at Tokyo. Distance made this easier somehow. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you weren't seeing Mark behind my back. Tell me those coffee dates were really just coffee. The silence that followed was answer enough. Nothing happened, she said finally. Not physically. I didn't cheat on you. Technically, I said, you didn't technically cheat on me, David. But you fell back in love with him, didn't you? Somewhere between the coffee dates and the ski lessons and the school tours. You remembered why you married him in the first place, and you realized you'd never really stopped loving him. I heard her crying now, no longer trying to hide it. Full broken sobs coming through the phone from half a world away. Part of me, the part that had loved her, that still loved her, wanted to comfort her, to tell her it was okay, to make this easier. But another part, the part that had spent the last week dismantling a life, packing up 8 years into a single suitcase, fleeing across an ocean, that part stayed silent. I'm sorry, she said when she could speak again. David, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't plan it. Mark and we started talking about Emma. And then we were talking about other things and it felt so easy, so natural, like coming home. And what did I feel like? I asked quietly. Like work, she whispered. Like something I had to maintain, like a job I was failing at. The honesty of it hit harder than any accusation could have. Because it was true. We'd become work to each other. Maintenance. Obligation. When did it stop being good? I asked. When did we stop being us? She was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Gradually. So gradually I didn't notice until it was already gone. You were working more. I was pulling away. Emma needed things we weren't giving her. And then Mark showed up at her soccer game one day. Just one game, he said. Just to see her. And suddenly there was this other option, this other version of how life could be. So you chose it. I didn't choose anything. I didn't stop it from happening. That's choosing, Sarah. Passive choosing, but still choosing. More crying. I listened to it echoing through the phone, imagining her in our kitchen. Her kitchen now surrounded by the life I'd paid for and couldn't save. What about Emma? I asked finally. Does she know? She knows something's wrong. She doesn't know you're in Tokyo. She doesn't know about Sarah trailed off about any of this. What am I supposed to tell her? Tell her the truth that I took a job in Tokyo. That you and I are getting divorced. That it's not her fault. She'll be devastated. She'll survive. Kids are resilient. And she'll have you and Mark. The father figure she apparently needs. Sarah made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. God, you can be so cold when you want to be. Cold? I'm halfway around the world because staying in the same city as you was unbearable. I'm in a country where I don't speak the language in an apartment that smells like nothing. Drinking coffee alone on Christmas night. That's not cold. Sarah, that's survival. It's Christmas night there. Different time zones, different everything. She was quiet again. I could hear her moving around, probably sitting down, probably at that kitchen table where we'd had our last real conversation, where I'd left the letters that ended everything. I read Emma's letter, too, she said softly. I'd forgotten about that. The second letter, the one I'd written to my daughter who wasn't legally mine, who I'd loved anyway, who I was losing because I'd failed to be what she needed. And I asked, it was beautiful and heartbreaking. David, she loves you. She doesn't understand why you're not here. She thinks. Sarah's voice broke again. She thinks you left because of her. Because she wanted to spend Christmas with Mark. The guilt hit like a physical blow. That's not I need to talk to her. Can I talk to her? She's in Aspen with Mark. I didn't tell her I was flying home. I just said it was an emergency and that I'd be back soon. So, you're going back? Of course, I'm going back. I can't leave her there alone on Christmas. She's not alone. She's with her father. The word hung between us. Father. Mark was her father. Biologically, legally, now practically. I was just the man who'd been there for 7 years. The consolation prize. The runner-up. You're her father, too, Sarah said quietly. You raised her. You were there for all the important things, except the ones that mattered. The recital I missed. The games I didn't make. The homework help she started asking Mark for instead of me. That's not fair. You tried. Trying isn't enough, Sarah. You taught me that. Results matter. Presence matters. And I failed on both counts. Silence settled between us like snow. Heavy, suffocating final. So what now? Sarah asked finally. You just stay in Tokyo? We never see you again. You become a ghost story, Emma tells her therapist. Someday Jonathan will send you the divorce papers. The house is yours. I already signed it over. I've separated all our finances. You won't have to deal with me for anything practical. Practical? Right. Her laugh was bitter. Always so practical, David. So rational. So controlled. Would you prefer if I screamed? If I raged? If I flew home and made a scene? My voice stayed level, calm, even though inside I was anything but. Would that make you feel better? Would that give you permission to be the wronged party instead of the one who engineered all of this? I didn't engineer. You gave me an ultimatum, Sarah. You told me to accept your relationship with Mark or divorce you. You backed me into a corner and then got surprised when I chose the door. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I thought you'd fight. I thought she stopped. I thought you cared enough to fight. And there it was. The real accusation. The heart of it. I cared enough to leave, I said quietly. I cared enough to remove myself from a situation where I was clearly unwanted, where I was the obstacle to your happiness. I cared enough to let you go. That's not caring. That's running away, maybe. Or maybe it's the kindest thing I could do for both of us. I heard her moving again, a door closing, the sound of water running. She was probably in the bathroom trying to compose herself. The bathroom we'd renovated 2 years ago. The expensive tile she'd insisted on. The rain shower I'd paid for and barely used. I don't want a divorce, she said when she came back. Her voice was steadier now, determined. I know I said it. I know I pushed you to this, but I don't actually want it. What do you want, Sarah? I want, she trailed off, started again. I want to figure this out. I want us to try counseling. I want to see if we can fix this. Why? The question seemed to surprise her. What do you mean why? Why do you want to fix this? Because you love me? Because you miss me? Or because it's inconvenient that I actually called your bluff? That's not David. I do love you. I never stopped loving you. You just love Mark more. It's not about more or less. It's different. Mark is he's familiar. He's easy. We have history. We have history, too. 8 years of it. I know. And I don't want to throw that away. She sighed. And I could picture her running her hand through her hair the way she did when she was frustrated. I need you to come home. We need to talk about this face to face. You can't just run away to Tokyo and expect. I'm not running away. I'm starting over without even trying to fix what we had. Sarah. I leaned my forehead against the window, the glass cool against my skin. What we had was already broken. It's been broken for months, maybe longer. We were just both too busy. Me with work, you with Mark to admit it. So, you're giving up. Just like that. I'm accepting reality. There's a difference. She was crying again. Harder now. The kind of crying that comes from deep places. I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're just gone. I can't believe you're surprised. You wanted me gone, Sarah. You told me Emma needed a real father figure. You told me if I didn't like your arrangement, I should divorce you. You got exactly what you asked for. I didn't ask for this. Yes, you did. My voice was still calm. Still, even. You just didn't think I'd actually do it. You thought I'd beg. You thought I'd fight. You thought I'd compete with Mark for your attention like some pathetic. Don't. Her voice cut through sharp. Don't you dare make this about pride. It's not about pride. It's about dignity. About knowing when you're not wanted. About having enough self-respect to walk away before you're completely destroyed. Silence fell again. I could hear her breathing. Could imagine her sitting in her kitchen, trying to process this. Trying to rewrite the script in her head where I was supposed to play the villain or the victim, but not this. Not the man who simply left. What about Emma? She asked finally. You're just abandoning her. The word hit like a slap. I'm not abandoning her. I'm removing myself from a situation where I'm not her legal parent, and you've made it clear I'm not her preferred parent either. She loves you. She loves Mark, too. And Mark is her actual father. Maybe it's better for her if I step aside and let them build that relationship without me complicating things. You really believe that? No, I didn't. But I said yes. More silence. Heavier this time. I need to go back to Aspen, Sarah said finally. Emma will be waking up soon. She'll want to know where I am. Tell her whatever you think is best. What's best would be you coming home. That's not an option. Why? Because you signed some contract. Because you're too proud to admit you made a mistake. Because there's nothing to come home to, Sarah. You chose Mark. I'm giving you the space to fully make that choice without me in the way. I didn't choose. She stopped. Started again. Her voice small. When did you become so cruel? I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. Maybe for the first time in our marriage. Fine. Her voice hardened. Fine. Stay in Tokyo. Start your new life. Abandon your family. But don't expect me to make this easy. If you want a divorce, you're going to have to fight for it. Why? So you can keep one foot in both relationships. So you can have Mark for the fun parts and me for the financial security. You, David. There it is. The real Sarah. The one who's been hiding under all that passive-aggressive sweetness for months. You don't get to judge me. You were never here. You were always working. Always choosing your career over us. You're right. I was. And I'm sorry for that. But you don't get to rewrite history and pretend you were the perfect wife waiting patiently while I neglected you. You checked out, too. You just found someone else to check in with. Silence. I have to go, she said finally. I have a flight back to Aspen in 3 hours. Safe travels. David. She paused. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just don't want to admit it yet. We'll see. She hung up. I stood there with the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the deadline, the static, the sound of nothing. Then I lowered the phone and looked out at Tokyo, at the city that had become my refuge. My escape, my fresh start. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. I felt raw, exposed, like I'd just survived something brutal. But I'd survived. I'd faced Sarah. I'd said the things that needed to be said. I'd held my ground. And I'd done it from 6,000 miles away, which maybe made me a coward, but at least I'd done it. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Mom called. She's coming back to Aspen, but she sounded really upset. Did you guys fight? I looked at that message for a long time. Then I typed, we talked. It's complicated, sweetheart, but it's not your fault. None of this is your fault. I hope you're having a good Christmas with Mark. She replied immediately. It's okay, I guess, but I miss you and I'm worried about Mom. When are you coming home? I'm not sure. I wrote back. I'm in Tokyo for work. It might be a while. That's really far. Yeah, it is. Will I see you again? The question broke my heart all over again. This child, this beautiful, perceptive child who I'd loved and raised and was losing. Of course, I wrote, making another promise I didn't know if I could keep. I'm still your dad, even from far away. We'll figure it out. Okay. I love you. I love you too, Emma, so much. I set down my phone and walked to the kitchen. Poured myself a drink, even though it was only 5 p.m. and I should probably eat something first. But eating felt impossible. Everything felt impossible. I'd done it. I'd talked to Sarah. I'd held firm. I'd survived the call I'd been dreading. And now I was alone in Tokyo on Christmas night with a drink in my hand and the weight of what I'd done settling over me like ash. Outside the city sparkled. Inside everything was silent. And somewhere over America, Sarah was boarding a plane back to Aspen, back to Mark, back to the life she'd chosen. While I stood here in my new apartment, in my new city, in my new life, free, untethered, terrified, I raised my glass to the Tokyo skyline and whispered, "Merry Christmas, David. Welcome to the rest of your life." Then I drank and waited for whatever came next. The days after Christmas blurred together in a haze of jet lag and deliberate distraction. I threw myself into work with the same intensity that had destroyed my marriage, except this time there was no one waiting at home to resent me for it. The Tokyo office was everything Richard had promised: efficient, balanced, respectful of boundaries. People arrived at 9 and left at 5. Weekends were sacred. Overtime was discouraged. And yet, I stayed late anyway because going back to my empty apartment felt like admitting something I wasn't ready to admit. Richard noticed. "On my third day, David," he said, appearing at my desk at 6:15. "It's Wednesday." I looked up from the financial models I'd been building. "I'm aware. Everyone else went home an hour ago. I'm just finishing." "No." He pulled up a chair, sat down with the casual authority of someone who'd been managing people for decades. "You're hiding, and I get it. New city, fresh start, big life changes. But this isn't New York. We don't do the martyr thing here. If you've ever been called out for behavior you thought you were hiding, you know that moment of exposure, that flash of defensiveness. I'm not. You've been here since 7 a.m. It's now past 6 p.m. You've eaten lunch at your desk every day. You haven't spoken to anyone except when absolutely necessary for work." Richard leaned back, studying me. "Want to tell me what you're running from?" I almost lied. Almost gave him some professional answer about dedication and transition periods and wanting to make a good impression. But something about Richard's directness, about being 6,000 miles from everything I'd known, made me tell the truth. "My wife," I said quietly. "Or ex-wife. Soon to be ex-wife. I left her on Christmas Eve. She found out on Christmas Day. And I'm here because if I stop moving, I'll have to think about what I've done." Richard nodded slowly like this made perfect sense. "Kids. Stepdaughter, 10 years old. Not legally mine, but I trailed off. But yours anyway." "Yeah." He was quiet for a moment, then stood up. "Come on. You're buying dinner, Richard. I appreciate it, but that wasn't a suggestion. You need to eat something that isn't convenience store rice balls, and you need to talk to someone who isn't a spreadsheet." 30 minutes later, we were sitting in a small izakaya in Abisu, the kind of place with wooden tables and paper lanterns and a menu I couldn't read. Richard ordered for both of us in fluent Japanese, then poured a sake. "How long have you been in Tokyo?" I asked. 12 years. Came here after my own divorce, actually." He smiled wryly. "Different circumstances. My ex-wife left me for her personal trainer. Very LA cliché, but same basic escape mechanism. Run far enough away that the hurt can't follow. Does it work? Eventually, but not if you do what you did in New York. Not if you just transplant the same unhealthy patterns to a new location." He sipped his sock. "Tokyo can heal you, David. But only if you let it. Only if you actually engage with the life you're building here instead of using work as anesthesia." The food arrived. Skewers of grilled chicken, pickled vegetables, miso soup. I realized I was starving. "How long before it stopped hurting?" I asked. Richard considered this. "The acute pain maybe 6 months. The dull ache a year. The acceptance 2 years. The actual moving on." He smiled. "I'll let you know when I get there. 12 years and you're not." "I'm joking. Mostly I dated. I had relationships. But I'm 53 years old and I work in finance. The pool of available women willing to date a divorced American workaholic in Tokyo is limited." Despite everything, I laughed. "But here's the thing," Richard continued, his expression turning serious. "I built a good life here anyway. I have friends. I have hobbies. I travel. I learned Japanese. I discovered I like pottery. Can you imagine me doing pottery? But there's this class in Shibuya. And every Saturday morning, I sit at a wheel and make ugly bowls, and it's the most peaceful I feel all week." "Pottery," I repeated. "Don't knock it. The point is, you have a chance to become someone different here, someone better. But you have to actually try. You have to do more than just work and sleep and wait for the pain to fade." I thought about my apartment, about the nights I'd spent staring out the window at Tokyo, watching other people live their lives, about the isolation I'd wrapped around myself like armor. "I don't know how," I admitted, "to be someone different. Start small. Join a gym. Take a language class. Talk to your neighbors. Tokyo is full of expats and English speakers. You're not as alone as you think." He refilled our sake cups. "And for God's sake, turn your phone off when you're not working. The New York office will survive without your 3 a.m. responses." We ate in comfortable silence for a while. The izakaya filled up with after-work crowds, salarymen in suits, young couples, Groups of friends, life happening all around us. She called, didn't she? Richard asked. Your wife on Christmas night. She'd flown home from Aspen in a panic. Found my letter. Lost her mind. And I told her it was over. That she'd made her choice and I was giving her the freedom to live with it. How'd that go? She said she didn't want a divorce. That I was giving up without trying. That I was abandoning my family. Richard winced. Ouch. Yeah. But here's the thing. She'd already checked out months ago. She was rebuilding a relationship with her ex-husband while I was working 80-hour weeks. I was just too busy to notice until she made it obvious. And the kid, Emma, saying her name hurt. She thinks it's her fault. She thinks I left because she wanted to spend Christmas with her biological father instead of me. That's rough. I texted her, tried to explain. But how do you tell a 10-year-old that adults are complicated and messy and sometimes love isn't enough? Richard didn't have an answer for that. We just sat there, two divorced men in Tokyo, eating grilled chicken and drinking sake and carrying our respective wounds. My phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, taking Richard's advice about boundaries, but something made me check. A text from Jonathan, my lawyer. David, Sarah called me. She's refusing to cooperate with the divorce. Says, you abandoned the marriage and she's going to fight for alimony, the house, everything. This could get ugly. Call me when you have a chance. I showed the message to Richard. He read it, shook his head. Let me guess. She wants you to come crawling back, and when you don't, she's going to punish you financially, apparently. Can she win? Maybe. I left the state, left the country. She could argue abandonment, but I also have documentation of her relationship with her ex, her spending patterns, the fact that I've been the sole earner for 8 years. It'll be a fight, but you'll win because you're smarter and more prepared. Richard smiled. You financial guys are all the same. Always 3 steps ahead. Is that a bad thing in divorce? No. In life, sometimes. He gestured for the check. My advice, let your lawyer handle it. Don't engage with her directly. Don't let her bait you into angry texts or phone calls. Just let it play out. That feels wrong. Cowardly. That's your guilt talking. You didn't abandon your marriage, David. You left a situation that was already over. There's a difference. We paid and walked back toward the station. Tokyo at night was alive in ways New York never quite managed, neon and crowds and energy, but somehow more controlled, more civilized. Want to know the best thing about Tokyo? Richard asked as we waited for the train. Nobody knows your story here. You can be anyone you want. Fresh slate. Is that what you did? Eventually. Took me a while. But yeah, I'm not the guy whose wife left him anymore. I'm just Richard, the American who does pottery and speaks terrible Japanese and loves this weird, wonderful city. The train arrived. We got on, grabbed hanging straps as the car filled with commuters. What about you? Richard asked. Who do you want to be? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Who was David Chen when he wasn't someone's husband or father or employee? When he wasn't defined by relationships and obligations and the expectations of others? I have no idea. I admit it. Then you get to figure it out. That's the adventure. We parted ways at Shibuya Station. Richard heading to his apartment in Daikanyama. Me heading to mine in the high-rise with the view I'd barely enjoyed. But instead of going straight home, I did something different. I wandered. If you've ever walked through a foreign city alone at night, you know that feeling, that mix of loneliness and freedom, that sense of being untethered from everything familiar. I walked through Shibuya's side streets, past tiny bars and ramen shops and convenience stores, watched people living their lives, couples on dates, friends laughing over drinks, solo diners reading at counter seats. Normal life, the kind I'd forgotten existed. I found myself at a small shrine tucked between buildings. People were there despite the late hour, making offerings, bowing, standing in quiet contemplation. I watched them, envying their certainty, their rituals, their connection to something larger than themselves. A woman about my age smiled at me as she passed. First time? She asked in English. That obvious? You have the look? Lost but curious? She gestured to the shrine. You can make a wish if you want. Throw a coin, bow twice, clap twice, bow once more. Does it work? She laughed. Who knows? But it feels good to hope for something. I watched her complete the ritual and leave. Then, feeling foolish but also strangely compelled, I approached the shrine, threw in a 5 yen coin, bowed twice, clapped twice, bowed once more. I didn't make a wish. I didn't know what to wish for. I just stood there in the quiet, surrounded by the sounds of Tokyo at night, and tried to feel something other than hollow. My phone buzzed again. Another text, This time from Sarah. I know you're reading these. I know you're there. You can't just disappear and pretend we never existed. We need to talk. Please. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I did what Richard had advised. I didn't respond. I just put my phone away and kept walking. I found a small bar a few blocks from my apartment, the kind with a wooden counter and 12 seats and a bartender who looked like he'd heard every story. I sat down, ordered whiskey, and just existed. The bartender spoke minimal English. I spoke no Japanese, but somehow we communicated. He poured, I drank, we nodded at each other in understanding. 2 seats down, an older Japanese businessman was doing the same thing. Drinking alone, lost in thought, carrying whatever weight he carried. We made eye contact. He raised his glass slightly. I raised mine back. No words, just acknowledgement. Just 2 men in a bar in Tokyo. Surviving whatever needed surviving. I stayed for 2 drinks, paid, walked the 3 blocks to my apartment building, rode the elevator to the 23rd floor, unlocked my door, stepped into the silence. But this time, the silence felt different, less oppressive, more like possibility. I made tea, actual Japanese tea, not the bags from home, and stood at my window. Tokyo spread below me. Millions of lights, millions of stories. Mine just one insignificant thread in an impossibly complex tapestry. My phone sat on the counter. 3 more texts from Sarah. I didn't read them. Instead, I opened my laptop and did something I hadn't done since arriving. I searched for things to do in Tokyo. Language classes, gyms, cooking schools, pottery studios. Richard had planted that seed. Running clubs, expat groups, ways to be a person instead of just a refugee. I bookmarked a beginner's Japanese class that met on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. A gym with an English-speaking trainer. A photography walk scheduled for the following Saturday. Small steps, baby steps, the kind Richard had talked about. Then I opened my email and wrote to Jonathan. Jonathan, Sarah's refusing to cooperate. I expected this. Let her fight. Give her nothing beyond what we've already offered. I'm done negotiating. If she wants a war, she can have one. But I'm fighting from 6,000 meters away and I'm not coming back. Proceed with the divorce filing. Let's get this done. David. I hit send before I could second guess it. Then I wrote another email. This one to Emma through her email account that Sarah had set up for school. Dear Emma, I know things are confusing right now. I know your mom is upset and you're probably hearing things that don't make sense. I want you to know some truths. 1. I love you. That will never change. 2. Your mom and I are having problems that have nothing to do with you. 3. I'm in Tokyo for work, but that doesn't mean I've forgotten you. 4. You can email me anytime. I'll always write back. 5. When things settle down, we'll figure out how to see each other. I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm sorry Christmas got complicated. I'm sorry for a lot of things, but I'm not sorry I got to be your dad for 7 years. Those were the best years of my life. Love always, Dad. I sent it before I could overthink that 1, 2. Then I closed my laptop, finished my tea, and went to bed. For the first time since arriving in Tokyo, I didn't dream about Sarah. I didn't dream about Emma. I didn't dream about my old life falling apart. I dreamed about nothing. Just deep, dark, healing sleep. And when I woke up the next morning to my alarm at 7 a.m., Tokyo sunlight streaming through my windows, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not happiness, not peace, but something close to both possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, I could survive this. That maybe Richard was right. That maybe Tokyo could heal me if I let it. I made coffee. Real coffee, not the instant stuff. I ate breakfast at my table instead of standing at the counter. I looked at my calendar and saw the Japanese class I'd bookmarked. The gym session I'd scheduled, the photography walk I'd committed to. Small steps toward becoming someone new. My phone buzzed. More messages from Sarah, probably. More demands or accusations or attempts to pull me back into the chaos. I didn't check. Instead, I got dressed, grabbed my bag, and headed to the office. Not to hide, not to use work as anesthesia. But because it was Thursday, and Thursday meant work, and work was just one part of a life, I was finally slowly beginning to build. Tokyo hummed outside my window. Millions of people starting their days, getting on trains, going to work, living their lives. And for the first time since arriving, I felt like maybe I could be one of them. Not the man who ran away from his marriage. Not the man who failed his family, just David in Tokyo. Starting over. 3 weeks into my new life, I started to understand what Richard meant about Tokyo healing you. It happened in small ways. Incremental shifts that accumulated into something larger. The Japanese language class on Tuesday and Thursday evenings where I struggled through basic phrases with a dozen other expats. All of us fumbling toward fluency. The gym sessions with Kenji, a different Kenji than my relocation specialist. This one, a personal trainer who spoke English with a British accent and had no mercy during burpees. The photography walks on Saturday mornings, wandering through neighborhoods I'd never have found otherwise. Yanaka with its old temples and traditional houses. Shimokazawa with its vintage shops and coffee culture. Daikanyama with its bookstores and quiet streets. I bought a camera, a nice one. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted it. Because taking photos of Tokyo's street corners and alleyways and moments of unexpected beauty gave me something to focus on besides the wreckage I'd left behind. If you've ever rebuilt yourself piece by piece, you know how strange it feels. How you catch yourself laughing at something and think, I'm allowed to laugh. How you make plans for the weekend and realize, I want to do this. Not should, want. Sarah texted constantly for the first 2 weeks. Anger, then bargaining, then more anger. I didn't respond. Jonathan handled everything through lawyers. The divorce was proceeding slowly and messily, but proceeding. Emma emailed twice. Short messages that broke my heart. Dad, Mom says you're not coming home. Is that true? I wrote back. I'm staying in Tokyo for work, but that doesn't mean we can't talk. How are you doing? Her response came 3 days later. Okay, I guess. Mom is sad a lot. Mark tries to cheer her up, but it doesn't really work. I miss you. I miss you, too, sweetheart. No more exchanges after that. I didn't know if Sarah had restricted her email access or if Emma had just run out of things to say to an absent father. Both possibilities hurt equally, but life continued because that's what life does. January turned into February. The Tokyo winter was cold but not brutal. I learned to navigate the train system without checking maps. I found a regular ramen shop where the owner recognized me and started preparing my order when I walked in. I made a friend Marcus, a British guy from the photography walks who worked in tech and had been in Tokyo for 5 years. The secret, Marcus said one Saturday over coffee in Nakamiguro, is to stop thinking of Tokyo as temporary. Stop thinking of yourself as passing through. You're not visiting. You're living here. Big difference. We were watching the Meguro River, which would be lined with cherry blossoms in a few weeks. I'd been looking forward to that to Hanami season. To something beautiful that didn't remind me of home. When did you make that shift? I asked. About a year in. When I stopped converting every price to pounds. When I started thinking in Japanese time zones instead of comparing everything to London. When I woke up one day and realized I wasn't homesick anymore. I'm not homesick, I said. I don't miss New York at all. Not the place, the people. Marcus studied me over his coffee. You haven't told me much about why you're here, just that it was a sudden relocation, work opportunity. I'd been vague about my personal life. It felt easier that way. But something about the quiet morning, the river flowing past, the distance from everything made me tell him. Not all of it. The edited version. Wife reconnected with her ex. Marriage fell apart. Decided to start over in Tokyo. Left right before Christmas. Marcus listened without interrupting. When I finished, he just nodded. Brutal timing. Christmas. It was the only timing. They were going to Aspen with him. I was going to be alone anyway. Still, that's a hell of a way to end a marriage. He paused. You doing okay? Was I? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yeah, I said, surprised to find I meant it. I actually am. Some days are harder than others, but overall, I'm okay. Good. That's good. Marcus finished his coffee. Want to know what helped me when my engagement fell apart? And I know this sounds cheesy as hell, but actually engaging with Tokyo. Not just living here, but really being here, learning the culture, making Japanese friends, doing things that force you out of the expat bubble. Like what? Like the pottery class Richard mentioned to you. I stared at him. How do you? Richard's in my pottery class. He talks about you. Says you're doing better, but still keeping everyone at arm's length. Marcus grinned. Tokyo's small when you're in the expat community. Everyone knows everyone eventually. The idea of Richard discussing me in pottery class was both mortifying and oddly touching. He's worried about you, Marcus continued. Thinks you need more than just work and weekend photography walks. I have the gym and Japanese class, which are both productive and healthy, but they're also solitary. Even the photography walks, you show up. You're friendly, but you never join us for drinks after. You never suggest meeting up outside of scheduled events. He was right. I'd been building a life, but it was still a careful life, a controlled life, One where I could retreat to my apartment in my silence and my solitude whenever things got too real. Come to Pottery, Marcus said. Tomorrow, Sunday afternoon. Richard will be insufferable if I bring you, but it'll be good for you. I don't know anything about pottery. None of us did. That's the point. It's humbling. You sit at a wheel and try to make a bowl and it collapses and you try again. Very zen, very therapeutic. I almost said no. Almost gave some excuse about needing to catch up on work or do errands or any of the 100 ways I'd learned to politely decline human connection. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the morning light on the river. Maybe it was Marcus' directness. Maybe it was the realization that I'd been in Tokyo for 5 weeks and could count my actual friends on one hand. Okay, I said. I'll come to Pottery. Marcus's grin widened. Excellent. Fair warning, you'll be terrible at it. Everyone is at first, but that's part of the charm. The next day, I found myself in a small studio in Shibuya, surrounded by wheels and clay and a dozen people who ranged from absolute beginners to moderately competent. Richard was there as promised, looking absurdly pleased with himself. You came, he said, like I'd accomplished something remarkable. Marcus is very persuasive. Marcus is a menace. But he's right. This is good for you. The instructor was a tiny Japanese woman named Yuki who spoke perfect English and had the patience of a saint. She demonstrated the basics, centering the clay, pulling up the walls, shaping the form, making it look effortless. Then we tried. If you've ever done pottery, you know how immediately humbling it is. The clay wobbles. Your hands shake. Everything you make looks vaguely obscene or completely lopsided. I made something that might have been a bowl if you squinted and had low standards. Beautiful, Yuki said, lying kindly. Richard at the wheel next to me was making something equally terrible. See, this is what I mean. Can't be a perfectionist here. Can't control it too much. You have to just let the clay do what it wants. That's terrible advice for pottery, but great advice for life. He grinned, his hands covered in clay slip. How's the divorce going? Ugly. Sarah's fighting everything. Claims I abandoned her once. Alimony, wants to keep the house, wants me to pay for Emma's private school, and your lawyer says that she's posturing, that she'll settle eventually, but it's going to take months. Months you'll spend here building this, he gestured around the studio. Could be worse. He was right. It could be worse. I could be in New York fighting this battle face to face, drowning in the daily reminders of what I'd lost. Instead, I was in Tokyo making ugly pottery with strangers who were becoming friends. The class lasted 2 hours. By the end, I'd made 3 bowls of varying terribleness and had clay in places clay should never be. Yuki wrapped my pieces carefully. They'll be fired and ready next week, she said. You come back? Yeah, I said, surprising myself. I'll come back. After class, the group went to a nearby izakaya. I almost begged off my default move, but Richard and Marcus basically frog marched me there. No escaping, Marcus said. This is the best part. Food and drinks and gossip. The izakaya was warm and loud and full of Sunday afternoon energy. Our group took over a long table. I found myself between Richard and a woman named Hana, Japanese-American, who worked in marketing and had lived in Tokyo for 8 years. First time at pottery? She asked. Is it that obvious? You have the look. Confused but determined. She smiled. Don't worry, it gets easier or you get more accepting of failure. Same difference. We ordered food family-style yakitori karaage edamame. Things I was learning to navigate and love. The conversation flowed around me. People talking over each other, sharing stories, laughing at inside jokes I didn't get yet but might eventually. Hana asked what brought me to Tokyo. I gave her the short version. Ah, she said knowingly. The escape relocation. I did the same thing. Bad breakup in San Francisco. Took a job transfer. Been here ever since. Any regrets about leaving? No. About how I left. Sometimes I burned some bridges I wish I'd preserved. But you can't go back. You know, only forward. That's what I keep telling myself. Does it help? Some days more than others. She nodded. That's honest. I appreciate honest. She refilled my beer from the pitcher. You should come to trivia. We do it every other Wednesday at a bar in Roppongi. It's mostly expats. Very casual, very fun. I'm terrible at trivia. Everyone says that. Come anyway. I found myself agreeing. Found myself actually looking forward to it. The afternoon stretched into evening. People came and went. I stayed longer than I'd planned. Talking to Hana about Tokyo neighborhoods, Arguing with Marcus about the best ramen shops, listening to Richard tell stories about his early days in Japan when his Japanese was worse and his cultural understanding non-existent. Around 7, my phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Dad, I know you're busy with work, but can we video chat sometime? I want to see where you live. My heart clenched. I excused myself from the table, stepped outside into the cold February night. I called her. Not video chat. I wasn't ready for that. For her to see my face and read everything I was feeling but voice, she answered on the second ring. Dad. Hey, sweetheart. Got your message. How are you? I'm okay. Mom's still sad a lot, but Mark is nice. He took me skiing again last weekend. That sounds fun. It was. But I miss you. Her voice got small. When are you coming home? The question I'd been dreading. The one I didn't have a good answer for. Emma, I don't think I'm coming back to New York. Tokyo is. This is where I am now. Silence. Then forever. I don't know about forever, but for a while, a long while. Because of Mom. She wasn't asking. She was stating fact. 10 years old and seeing through all the adult pretense. It's complicated, I said. That's what Mom says. That it's complicated, but it doesn't seem complicated. You guys don't love each other anymore. So, you got divorced, right? Out of the mouths of babes. Something like that, I said quietly. Are you happier there in Tokyo? Was I? I thought about the pottery class, the photography walks, the Saturday mornings exploring neighborhoods, the feeling of possibility instead of obligation. Yeah, I said. I think I am. Then I'm glad you went. Her voice was steady, mature beyond her years. I'm sad you're not here, but I don't want you to be sad. And you were sad here. I could tell. I felt tears prick my eyes. When did you get so wise? I'm 10. I know things. I could hear the smile in her voice. Can we video chat next time? I want to see your apartment in Tokyo. It looks cool in pictures. Yeah, we can do that. How about next Sunday? Same time. Okay. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Emma, so much. We hung up. I stood outside the izakaya for a moment, breathing in the cold air, letting the emotion wash through me without drowning in it. When I went back inside, Hana looked at me with understanding. You okay? Yeah, just my daughter. She's 10 and somehow more emotionally intelligent than I am. Kids usually are. She slid the beer pitcher toward me. Drink. It helps. We stayed until almost 9. By the time we said our goodbyes, I had 3 new contacts in my phone and plans for trivia on Wednesday and a promise to join Marcus for a hike outside Tokyo the following weekend. Walking home through Shibuya, I felt different. Lighter maybe, or just less alone. My phone buzzed again. This time, Jonathan, Sarah's lawyer, is ready to negotiate. She's dropped the alimony demand. Still wants the house which you already gave her and wants you to contribute to Emma's education. That part's non-negotiable for her. I stopped walking, stood on a street corner in Shibuya, while thousands of people flowed around me. Emma's education, the one thing I'd always wanted to provide for her, the one thing that had nothing to do with the divorce and everything to do with being her father. Legal or not. I texted back, agree to education costs. Whatever she needs, whatever school she goes to, set up a fund. Make it ironclad that the money goes directly to Emma's education, not through Sarah. Done. This should wrap things up. We could be finalized by April. April. 3 months away. The end of my marriage. Official and legal and final. I should have felt sad. Should have felt the weight of it. Instead, I felt relief. And underneath that, the smallest flicker of something else, hope. I walked the rest of the way home, past the bright lights of Shibuya, past the late-night restaurants and convenience stores, past the lives being lived in this city that had somehow, impossibly become mine. My apartment was dark and quiet when I got there. But it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like a base, a launching point, a place I returned to after living, not a place I hid from life. I made tea, stood at my window, looked out at Tokyo, spreading beneath me, alive and glowing and infinite. My phone sat on the counter, silent now. No more texts from Sarah. No more emergencies or accusations or attempts to pull me back. Just quiet. Just peace. Just the life I was building. Brick by brick, day by day. I opened my laptop and looked at the photos from yesterday's photography walk. The morning light on the Meguro River. The narrow streets of Nakamero. The moments of beauty I'd captured because I'd been there. Present, engaged, really present. For the first time in years, I uploaded the best ones to a folder I'd titled Tokyo Year 1. Because that's what this was. Not an escape, not a running away, a beginning. And tomorrow I'd wake up and go to work and take my Japanese class and maybe text Hana about trivia and definitely video chat with Emma and continue building this life that was becoming impossibly mine. The divorce would finalize. The wounds would heal. The life I'd left behind would become a story I told instead of a present I inhabited. And I would be okay. Better than okay. I would be free. March arrived with the promise of cherry blossoms and the reality of divorce papers. Jonathan emailed me the final documents on a Tuesday morning. I was in the office reviewing quarterly reports for the Asian markets when the notification popped up. Subject line: Final divorce decree. Signature required. I stared at it for a long moment before opening it. 23 pages. Legal language reducing 8 years of marriage to clauses and stipulations. Sarah gets the house. I get my separate assets. Emma's education fund is established, protected, guaranteed. No alimony, clean split, done. All I had to do was sign. My hand hovered over the mouse. This was it. The official end. The moment that would transform separated into divorced wife into ex-wife, married into single. I signed electronic signature. Witnessed and notarized remotely. Modern divorce for a modern failure. Then I closed the email and went back to work because what else was there to do? The markets didn't care about my personal life. The yen-dollar exchange rate remained indifferent to my emotional state. Richard found me at lunch sitting in the break room with a convenience store bento. I wasn't really eating. "You have that look," he said, sitting down across from me. "What look?" "The look of someone who just did something significant and is trying to pretend it doesn't matter. If you've ever tried to hide emotional devastation behind professional composure, you know how transparently it fails." I set down my chopsticks. "Signed the divorce papers this morning." Richard nodded slowly. "How do you feel?" "I don't know. Empty. Relieved. Like I should feel something more dramatic than just tired. That's normal. The big moments are never as big as we expect them to be. It's the small ones that destroy us." He opened his own lunch. "You should take the afternoon off. Go do something that's not work." "I'm fine, David." "Really?" Take the afternoon off." "That's not a suggestion from a friend. That's from your boss." He smiled slightly. "Go to a museum. Take photos. Sit in a park. Just don't sit here pretending you're fine when you're clearly not." I wanted to argue. Wanted to insist I could power through. That work was the best distraction. That keeping busy was how I survived. But Richard had been through this. He knew. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll go." I left the office at 1 p.m., walking out into a Tokyo afternoon that was warmer than it had been. The first real hint of spring in the air. Cherry blossom season was coming. The city was preparing for it. Forecasts everywhere. Hanami party planning. The collective anticipation of something beautiful. I took the train to Ueno. Wandered into the park where early plum blossoms were already blooming. Found a bench near the pond and just sat there watching people feed ducks, watching couples walk hand in hand, watching life continue its relentless forward motion. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Dad. Mom said the divorce is final. Are you okay?" I stared at that message. Sarah must have told her immediately. Probably thought it was important for Emma to know. Or maybe she needed someone to talk to and 10-year-old Emma was the closest thing to a neutral party. I texted back, "I'm okay. How are you?" Sad, but also kind of relieved. Does that make sense? "Yeah, sweetheart. That makes perfect sense. Mom's been crying a lot, but also planning things with Mark. It's weird. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this. It's okay. Mark is nice. He doesn't try to replace you or anything. He just is there. Present." The word I'd heard so many times in the months leading up to this. Mark was present. Mark showed up. Mark was what I hadn't been. "I'm glad he's good to you." I wrote and meant it. "When can I visit Tokyo?" "Mom says maybe this summer. Would that be okay?" My heart jumped. The thought of Emma here, seeing my new life, my apartment, my city. It felt impossible and essential all at once. That would be more than okay. I'd love that. Cool. I'll tell Mom. "Love you, Dad." "Love you, too, Emma." I sat with that conversation for a while. The idea of Emma visiting, of her seeing that I'd built something here, that I wasn't just hiding or running away, but actually living. My phone buzzed again. This time, "Hana, hey, we're doing early Hanami viewing this weekend. Some spots already have blossoms. Want to come?" I almost declined. My default response to invitations, to connection, to anything that required showing up as a full human being rather than a carefully controlled facade. But Emma would ask about my life in Tokyo, about my friends, about what I did here, and I wanted to have answers that were more than work and gym and trying not to think about everything I lost. Yes, I texted back where and when. By Saturday, I'd almost talked myself out of going. The week had been long. Work had been intense, and the weight of the divorce, even though I'd told myself I was fine, sat heavy in my chest. But I went anyway. Met Hannah and Marcus and 6 other people from various overlapping friend groups at Meguro River at 9 a.m. The cherry trees were just beginning to bloom. Not the full explosion of pink that would come in 2 weeks, but enough to be beautiful. Enough to remind you that winter doesn't last forever. You made it, Hannah said, smiling. She handed me a coffee from the convenience store. How was your week? Divorce finalized on Tuesday. Her smile faded. I'm sorry. Are you okay? Everyone keeps asking me that. I don't know anymore. I feel like I should have a better answer. The answer is you're here. You showed up. That's enough. She linked her arm through mine. Casual and friendly. Come on. We're walking to Nakamiguro. The blossoms are better there. The group moved as a loose collective. People pairing off and reforming in different configurations. As we walked, I found myself next to Marcus, who was talking about a photography project he was planning. I want to capture Tokyo's in-between spaces, he said. Not the famous spots, the alleys and side streets and places tourists never see. The real city? That sounds incredible. Want to join me? Could be a collaboration. Your eye for composition. My obsession with obscure locations. I'm not that good. Stop. You're good enough and it'll be fun. Plus, it gets you out of that apartment more. I'm out plenty. Work doesn't count. Scheduled social events don't count. I'm talking about random exploration. Getting lost on purpose. That kind of out. I considered it. A photography project, something creative, something that had nothing to do with work or divorce or the person I used to be. Okay, I said. Let's do it. Marcus grinned. Excellent. We start next weekend. Bring your camera and your sense of adventure. We reached Nakamuro where the cherry trees lined both sides of the river. Even with only partial blooms, it was stunning. Petals drifted down occasionally, landing on the water, floating downstream. Temporary beauty, fleeting perfection. If you've ever stood beneath cherry blossoms, you know that feeling, that awareness of transience, of beauty that exists precisely because it doesn't last. The Japanese had a word for it. Mono nor. The pathos of things. The gentle sadness of impermanence. I took photos. Lots of them. The blossoms. The river. The people beneath the trees looking up in wonder. Hannah laughing at something someone said. Marcus adjusting his camera settings. Moments that would pass but could be preserved at least partially. At least in pixels in memory. We got lunch at a tiny restaurant overlooking the river. Sat on the floor sharing dishes, talking over each other in the way friend groups do. Hannah was telling a story about a disastrous date she'd had that week, and everyone was laughing. And I realized with a start that I was laughing, too. Actually laughing. Not performing happiness or going through motions, but genuinely enjoying myself. When had that happened? When had I stopped just surviving and started actually living again? Earth to David, Marcus said, waving a hand in front of my face. You still with us? Sorry, just thinking about how I didn't expect to be here in Tokyo with friends laughing. 3 months ago I was. I trailed off miserable in New York. Hannah supplied helpfully. Yeah, pretty much. And now I'm less miserable in Tokyo. Progress. Marcus raised his beer. To being less miserable. Everyone joined the toast. It was absurd and perfect and exactly what I needed. We stayed at Nakamiguro until late afternoon, then migrated to a bar in Shibuya. More drinks, more conversation, more of this strange new life I was building. Around 8 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number, New York area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me step outside into the Shibuya night and pick up. Hello, David. It's Mark. I froze. Mark, Sarah's ex-husband, Emma's biological father, the man who'd been the catalyst for everything. Mark, I said carefully. This is unexpected. I know, I debated calling, but I wanted to talk to you. Monto man, if you have a few minutes. I looked back through the bar window at my friends laughing and drinking and living their lives. Looked out at Shibuya Crossing, the controlled chaos of thousands of people moving in organized patterns. I have a few minutes, I said. There was a pause. Then first, I want to say I'm sorry for my part in how everything went down. I didn't set out to destroy your marriage, but I did, or at least I helped, and I'm sorry for that. This was not what I'd expected. I'd expected defensiveness, maybe, or gloating. Not an apology. Why are you calling me? I asked. Because Emma asked me to. She said you seemed sad when she talked to you. Said you were alone in Tokyo. Said someone should check on you. He paused. She loves you, you know. She doesn't understand why you had to leave. But she loves you. The words hit harder than they should have. Coming from Mark of all people. I love her too. I said quietly. I know. Sarah showed me the education fund you set up. That was generous. More than generous. She's my daughter, even if not legally. About that. Mark cleared his throat. I wanted to run something by you. Sarah and I are getting married next month, and we want to make sure Emma feels secure, that she knows she has both of us, but she also has you, and we don't want her to feel like she has to choose. Okay, I said slowly, not sure where this was going. So, we were thinking if you're open to it, maybe we could work out a schedule. Summers in Tokyo with you, some holidays, spring break, whatever works with your schedule and hers. We'd pay for the flights. We want her to have a relationship with you. She needs that. I leaned against the building, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. This man, this stranger who wasn't a stranger. This person who'd taken my wife and was now offering me my daughter. Why would you do that? I asked. Why would you make it easier for me to be in her life? Because she asked me to. Because I know what it's like to miss years of your kid's life. I did that. Made that mistake, and I don't want her to lose another father. And because he paused, because you're clearly a good guy who got caught in a bad situation. I'm not trying to be your friend, but I don't want to be your enemy either. For Emma's sake, I couldn't speak for a moment. Just stood there on a Shibuya street, half a world away from where this conversation should be happening, feeling everything I'd been holding in for months threaten to overflow. That would mean a lot, I said finally. To me, to her. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just be there when she visits. Be the dad you were trying to be. I will. I promise. Good. Another pause. For what it's worth, Sarah feels terrible about how everything happened. She knows she handled it badly. She's been in therapy working through stuff. We both have. Good for her, I said, and didn't mean it sarcastically. I actually meant it. I hope you guys are happy. I hope you build something good. We're trying. And David, you sound better than when you left. Sarah said you sounded destroyed on Christmas. You don't sound destroyed now. I'm not. Not anymore. Good. That's good. He cleared his throat. I'll let you go. I'm sure you have better things to do than talk to me on a Saturday night. Actually, I said, looking back at my friends through the bar window. I'm out with friends. First time I've really had friends in years, probably. Then definitely get back to them. We'll be in touch about Emma's visit. Take care of yourself. You, too. He hung up. I stood there for a moment, processing. Mark had called me. Mark had apologized. Mark had offered me a relationship with Emma. Structured and real and ongoing. The man who'd taken my wife had just given me back my daughter. I walked back into the bar, slid into my seat next to Hannah. You okay? She asked. You look like you've seen a ghost. That was Mark, my ex-wife's soon-to-be new husband. Everyone at the table went quiet. And Marcus prompted, and he apologized and said, Emma can visit me in Tokyo. Summers, holidays, whenever we want. That's surprisingly decent of him, Hannah said. Yeah, I picked up my beer, took a long drink. I think I'm going to be okay. Actually okay. Not just surviving, but actually building something here. Took you long enough to figure that out. Richard said from the other end of the table. I hadn't even seen him arrive. We've been telling you that for months. I'm a slow learner. Clearly, he raised his glass. But you're learning. That's what matters. The conversation moved on, flowing around me like water around a stone. But I sat there feeling something shift inside me, something fundamental. For 3 months, I'd been thinking of Tokyo as exile, as escape, as the place I'd run to when everything fell apart. But it wasn't that anymore. It was home. Not because I'd forgotten New York or stopped missing Emma or magically healed from the divorce, but because I'd built something here. Friendships, routines, pottery on Sundays and trivia on Wednesdays and photography walks on Saturdays. A life that wasn't defined by what I'd lost, but by what I was creating. I pulled out my phone and texted Emma. Hey, sweetheart. Just talked to Mark. I can't wait for you to visit this summer. I'm going to show you all my favorite places. Get ready for the best ramen of your life. Her response came immediately. Yes. I'm so excited. Can we go to that robot restaurant and the cat cafes and see Mount Fuji? All of it. Whatever you want. Love you. Love you too, Dad. I'm glad you're happy there. I looked at that last message for a long time. I'm glad you're happy there. Was I happy? I looked around the table at Richard arguing with Marcus about the best hiking trails outside Tokyo. At Hana showing someone photos on her phone. At the easy camaraderie of people who'd chosen each other, who showed up, who made the effort. Yeah, I was happy. Not perfectly happy, not uncomplicated happy, but genuinely, surprisingly happy. The divorce was final. The marriage was over. That chapter of my life had closed. But this chapter, this Tokyo chapter was just beginning. And for the first time since leaving New York, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was ready for it. April brought cherry blossoms in full force and a phone call I should have expected, but didn't. I was at Yo-Yo Yogi Park with Marcus, photographing the Hanami parties happening beneath the trees, families on picnic blankets, couples holding hands, groups of friends drinking and laughing beneath clouds of pink petals. The sun was setting, turning everything golden, and I was crouched low, trying to capture the way light filtered through the blossoms when my phone rang. Sarah, I hadn't spoken to her directly since Christmas night. Everything had gone through lawyers. The divorce was final. The arrangements for Emma's summer visit were being coordinated through Mark. There was no reason for her to call me, which meant something was wrong. I almost let it go to voicemail. But the thought of Emma made me answer, Sarah, David. Her voice was different than I remembered, smaller, uncertain. Do you have a minute? I looked at Marcus, who'd noticed me freeze. He gestured that he'd keep shooting, giving me space. I walked away from the crowds toward a quieter section of the park. What's wrong? Is Emma okay? Emma's fine. She's at soccer practice. A pause. I'm calling because I owe you an apology. A real one, not through lawyers or brief emails. An actual conversation. If you've ever had someone pull the rug out from under you twice. First by destroying your marriage, then by acknowledging they destroyed it, you know how disorienting it is. Okay, I said carefully. I've been in therapy since January, processing everything that happened. And my therapist asked me a question last week that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She took a shaky breath. She asked if I'd ever actually told you the truth about why I pushed you away. You were in love with Mark. That seems pretty straightforward. That's part of it. But not all of it. Another pause, longer this time. David, do you remember when we first got together? When Emma was 2 and I was drowning as a single mom and you swept in like this knight in shining armor. I remember. You were so put together, so successful. You had your life figured out and I was this mess, divorced, broke, struggling to raise a kid I had no idea how to raise. You made me feel safe. You made me feel like maybe I could build something stable. And then I worked too much and stopped being present. I know this story, Sarah won. No, you don't. Because I never told you the other part. Her voice cracked. I never told you that somewhere along the way I started resenting you for being so capable. For having all the answers, for making me feel like I couldn't make a decision without running it past you first. I stopped walking. What? You were so good at everything, David. So successful at work. So good with money. So logical and rational and calm. And I felt like this accessory to your perfect life, like I was supposed to be grateful you'd chosen me, grateful you'd taken on someone else's kid, grateful for the house and the lifestyle and everything you provided. Sarah, I know you never meant it that way, but that's how it felt. Like I was less than, like I'd brought nothing to the table except baggage and bills. The words hit like stones. I'd spent months thinking I knew why my marriage had failed. I'd worked too much. I'd been absent. I'd prioritized wrong. Simple causation. Clear fault. But this was different. This was about things I hadn't even known were happening. When Mark came back around, she continued, he made me feel different. He didn't have his life together. He was still figuring things out. He asked for my opinion on things. He made mistakes and admitted them. He was. She searched for the word human, flawed, equal, and I wasn't. You were perfect. That was the problem. I laughed short and bitter. I wasn't perfect, Sarah. I was drowning. I was working 80-hour weeks trying to provide the life I thought you wanted, trying to be good enough for you. I never asked for that. You didn't have to ask. You married up your words, not mine. You said that at our rehearsal dinner, that you were marrying up, that you couldn't believe someone like me chose someone like you. Silence on the other end. Heavy silence. I said that, she whispered. You did, and I internalized it. I thought providing was how I proved I was worth choosing. That if I could just work hard enough, earn enough, give you the perfect life, then I'd be enough. Oh, God, David, I didn't realize. How could you? I never told you. I just kept working harder, kept trying to be perfect, kept failing at the one thing that actually mattered, being present. We both sat with that for a moment. 8 years of miscommunication distilled into a phone call across 13 time zones. I'm sorry, Sarah said finally. For all of it. For making you feel like you had to be perfect. For not telling you I felt suffocated by that perfection. For running back to Mark instead of talking to you about what was wrong. For the Christmas ultimatum. For everything. I'm sorry, too. For not seeing what was happening. For hiding in work instead of fighting for us. For leaving the way I did. Were we ever going to make it? She asked quietly. If we'd done everything differently, if we'd communicated better, if I'd been honest and you'd been present, would it have worked? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Tried to imagine a version of us that could have survived. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe. Or maybe we were always going to get here eventually, just maybe with less collateral damage. Emma, Sarah said. Yeah, Emma. She asks about you constantly. What you're doing, if you're happy when she can visit. Sarah's voice softened. She's so excited about this summer. She's already planning everything she wants to do in Tokyo. Me, too. I've been making lists. Mark showed me the education fund you set up. David, that's you didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. She's my daughter, Sarah. Maybe not legally, maybe not biologically, but in every way that matters. I'm not going to stop being her father just because our marriage ended. I heard her crying. Soft, quiet crying, not the dramatic sobs from Christmas night. Just sadness, just grief for what we'd lost and how we'd lost it. You're a good man, David. I wish I'd appreciated that more when I had the chance. And you're a good mother. I wish I'd told you that more often. Are we? She paused. Are we going to be okay? Not together, but as Emma's parents, as people who used to love each other. Yeah, I said and meant it. I think we are eventually. It'll take time, but we'll get there. Good. That's good. She took a shaky breath. Mark and I are getting married next month. Small ceremony, just family. Emma wanted me to ask if you'd be okay with that. Of course, I'm okay with that. He makes you happy. He's good to Emma. That's all that matters. You really mean that? I really do. And I did. Standing in Yai Yogi Park surrounded by cherry blossoms and strangers celebrating spring, I genuinely wished her happiness. Sarah, I need to ask you something. Okay. When you were with Mark before Christmas, before the ultimatum, was there anything I could have done to save us? If I'd noticed sooner, if I'd fought harder, if I'd chosen differently. She was quiet for a long time. No, she said finally. By the time you could have noticed, I was already gone. I'd already emotionally left the marriage. I just hadn't admitted it yet, even to myself. The honesty hurt, but it was clean hurt. Clarifying hurt. Thank you for telling me that. I should have told you months ago. Years ago, maybe. She paused. Are you happy there in Tokyo? Emma says, you sound different, lighter. I looked around the park at the blossoms falling like snow. At Marcus in the distance, still photographing at the families and couples and friends celebrating the fleeting beauty of spring. Yeah, I said. I am. It's not what I planned, but it's good. Really good. I'm glad. You deserve that. Another pause. I should go. Emma will be home soon. Sarah, one more thing. Yeah, thank you for calling, for apologizing, for being honest. It helps. I'm glad. Take care of yourself, David. You, too. She hung up. I stood there for a while, phone in hand, processing. 8 years of marriage, months of divorce, and now this closure. Real closure. Not the legal kind from signed papers, but the emotional kind that comes from honesty and accountability and mutual recognition of failure. We'd both gotten it wrong. We'd both made mistakes and now we were both moving forward separately but with less animosity, less blame. Marcus found me standing there. You okay? He asked. You've been gone for 20 minutes. My ex-wife called. Oh, is everything? She apologized. Actually apologized. Took responsibility for her part in everything. I looked at him. I didn't know I needed that until I got it. Marcus nodded slowly. Closure is weird like that. You think you don't need it, and then when it comes, you realize you've been carrying this weight you didn't even know was there. Yeah, exactly that. We walked back toward the Hanami parties. The sun had set completely now, and the park was lit with lanterns. People were settling in for evening celebrations, eating, drinking, singing, life happening all around us. Want to grab dinner? Marcus asked. Or do you need space? Dinner sounds good. We ended up at a yakitori place in Harajuku, sitting at the counter watching the chef grill skewers over by Notan charcoal. The familiar ritual of it, ordering, eating. The quiet companionship grounded me. Can I ask you something? I said after we'd ordered. Shoot. How long did it take you to stop feeling guilty about your engagement ending? Marcus considered this, absently rotating his beer glass. Honestly, I'm not sure I ever completely stopped. But the guilt changed. At first, it was this crushing thing. Everything was my fault. I destroyed something good. I was a terrible person. But over time, it became more complicated. I could see where I'd messed up, but I could also see where she'd messed up. Where we'd both made choices that led to the ending. And now I just feel sad sometimes. Sad it didn't work out. Sad we couldn't be what each other needed, but not guilty. Not responsible for fixing something that was already broken. He looked at me. Is that where you're at? Getting there. Sarah's call helped, hearing her take responsibility, admitting she'd already left emotionally before I even knew there was a problem. I paused. It makes the leaving feel less like abandonment and more like acceptance. That's growth, my friend. We ate in silence for a while. The chef brought more skewers, chicken, scallions, beef. Simple food perfectly executed. My phone buzzed. Emma, Dad. Mom said you guys talked. She seems happier. Thank you. I stared at that message. Thank you. Like I'd done something for Sarah by accepting her apology. Like forgiveness was a gift I'd given instead of a release I'd needed. I'm glad she's happier. How was soccer practice? Good. Scored 2 goals. Coach says, I'm getting better. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Only 73 days until I visit. She was counting. The thought made my chest tight. I know. I'm counting, too. Love you, sweetheart. Love you, too, Dad. I set down my phone, smiling despite everything. Good news, Marcus asked. Emma, counting down days until her visit this summer. That's sweet. You nervous? Terrified. What if Tokyo disappoints her? What if I disappoint her? You won't. You're building a whole life here. You have things to show her, places to take her, friends for her to meet. He gestured around. This is real, David. This isn't exile or escape anymore. This is your actual life. He was right. Somewhere over the past 4 months, Tokyo had stopped being the place I'd run to and started being the place I lived, worked, had friends, made pottery, took photos, existed as a complete person instead of a collection of failures and regrets. When did that happen? I wondered aloud. For much, when I tear gradually. Same way healing always happens. You just wake up one day and realize you're not bleeding anymore. We finished dinner, walked back through Harajuku toward the station. The streets were alive with weekend energy teenagers in elaborate fashion. Tourists taking photos, couples walking hand in hand. At the station, Marcus turned to me. Photography project tomorrow. I found some great spots in Janison we should shoot. Yeah, text me the time. Will do. And David, I'm glad your ex called. I'm glad you got that closure. You seem lighter. I feel lighter. We parted ways. Marcus heading to Nakamuro. Me back to Shibuya. The train was crowded but not uncomfortably so. I found a spot near the door and watched Tokyo slide past the windows. My phone buzzed one more time. Richard, heard from Marcus, you had a big call today. Pottery tomorrow. Nothing like throwing clay to process emotions. I smiled. Can't photography project with Marcus, but next week for sure. Good. Proud of you, kid. Building a real life there. I put my phone away and just rode the train, feeling the rhythm of it, the sway and click of rails, the collective journey of strangers going their separate ways. When I got back to my apartment, instead of immediately turning on my laptop or diving into work emails, I did something different. I made tea, put on music jazz, something Miles Davis that felt right for the mood. Stood at my window looking out at Tokyo's nighttime sprawl. Sarah's call had given me something I didn't know I'd been waiting for. Permission, maybe to stop carrying the full weight of our failure. To acknowledge that relationships end for complicated reasons, not simple ones. That 2 people can both try and still fail. That love isn't always enough. But also, and this felt important, that failure in one thing doesn't mean failure in everything. My marriage had ended, but I wasn't ending. I was here in Tokyo building something new, making friends, finding joy in pottery and photography and ramen shops where the owner knew my order, creating a life that felt authentic instead of performative. Emma would visit in 73 days. We'd eat ramen and visit temples and take 1,000 photos. I'd show her my favorite spots, the quiet shrine in Harajuku, the bookstore in Daikanyama, the river in Nakamura where cherry blossoms fell like snow. I'd introduce her to my friends, show her the pottery I'd made, ugly but improving. Prove to her that I hadn't just run away, I'd run towards something better. And maybe in showing her that, I'd finally believe it myself. I opened my laptop and started a new document, not work, something else. Things I've learned in Tokyo. 1. Failure isn't permanent unless you let it be. 2. Starting over is terrifying, but possible. 3. Community matters more than I thought. 4. Presence is a practice, not a destination. 5. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave. 6. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay gone. 7. Healing happens gradually, then suddenly. 8. Cherry blossoms are beautiful because they don't last. 9. Neither does pain. I saved the document. Maybe I'd add to it. Maybe I wouldn't. But seeing those thoughts organized, acknowledged, felt like something. Outside, Tokyo glittered. Inside, I felt something close to peace. The divorce was final. Sarah had apologized. Emma was coming to visit. And I was okay. More than okay. I was healing. Summer arrived in Tokyo with humidity that made the air feel solid. And a text message that changed everything. Dad, I land in 6 hours. I'm on the plane. I can't wait to see you. I read Emma's message for the 10th time. Standing in my apartment at 5 a.m. too nervous to sleep. 73 days of planning, of making lists, of preparing for this moment, and now it was here. My apartment was spotless. I'd cleaned obsessively for 3 days. Stocked the fridge with snacks I thought a 10-year-old might like. Set up the guest room with fresh linens and a small vase of flowers. Made a binder, an actual binder of activities and restaurants and places we could visit. Richard had laughed when I showed it to him at work. You made a binder for a 10-year-old's visit. That's very you. I want it to be perfect. It will be because you'll be there. That's all she wants, David. Just you present and engaged. Present, that word again, the one that had destroyed my marriage and was now guiding my attempt at redemption. I took the train to Narita Airport at 6 a.m., arriving 3 hours early because anxiety doesn't respect reasonable timelines. Found a coffee shop with a view of the arrivals board and watched Emma's flight status update from en route to landed to at gate. My hands were shaking. If you've ever waited for someone who matters really matters, you know how time warps. How minutes become hours. How you check your phone compulsively even though nothing's changed. And then suddenly there she was. Emma burst through the arrivals gate, pulling a purple suitcase covered in stickers, her hair longer than I remembered, her face older, more mature. She scanned the crowd frantically, and when her eyes found mine, her whole face transformed. Dad, she ran. I caught her. She crashed into me with the full force of an almost 11-year-old who hadn't seen her father in 6 months. And I held her like she might disappear if I let go. I missed you, she said into my chest. I missed you so much. I missed you too, sweetheart. So much. We stood there in Narita Airport's arrivals hall, travelers flowing around us, both of us crying a little and not caring who saw. Finally, she pulled back, grinning through tears. Your hair's different. I'd gotten a haircut yesterday. Probably unnecessary. You think you look good? Happy? She studied my face. Seriously. Are you happy here? Yeah, I said, meaning it completely. I really am. Come on, let's get you home. Well, to my home. Your temporary home. For the next 2 weeks, the train ride back to Shibuya was a blur of Emma's excited chatter. Everything amazed her. The trains, the stations, the vending machines, the sheer density of Tokyo. It's so crowded, but everyone's so quiet and organized. Dad, they have seats that heat up. I watched her experience Tokyo through fresh eyes. Seeing the wonder I'd stopped noticing. The efficiency, the order, the small kindnesses, people giving up seats for the elderly, the automated announcements in multiple languages, the sheer impossibility of 13 million people functioning together at my apartment. Emma dropped her suitcase and immediately went to the window. Oh my God, she breathed. You can see everything, Dad. This is amazing. I stood beside her, looking at the view I'd stared at countless times. The Shibuya crossing, the buildings stacked like children's blocks, the organized chaos of Tokyo life. Pretty cool, right? So cool. She turned to me, serious suddenly. Thank you for letting me visit. I know things are complicated with you and Mom, but I'm really glad I get to be here, to see your life. I'm glad too, sweetheart. I pulled her into another hug. You hungry, jet-lagged, starving, and yes, but I want to stay awake. Mom said I should try to adjust to the time zone fast. Smart mom. Okay, lunch first. Then I want to show you some of my favorite places. We went to the ramen shop where the owner knew me. His eyes widened when he saw Emma. Musu, daughter. Hi. Yes, he beamed immediately, fussing over Emma, bringing her extra toppings, teaching her how to slurp properly. She giggled and tried, making a mess and not caring. "This is the best ramen I've ever had," she declared. "We're coming here every day. Every day might be excessive, but we can definitely come back." After lunch, we walked. I took her through Shibuya, let her experience the crossing during a busy period, took photos of her in the middle of thousands of people. All of us waiting for the light, then surging forward in organized waves. "It's like a dance," she said, amazed. We went to the cat cafe she'd requested. Spent an hour surrounded by cats while Emma took approximately 300 photos, visited the shrine in Harajuku, where I showed her how to make an offering. She wished for something silently. "Seriously?" Then told me it was a secret. "Will it come true?" she asked. "Maybe, if you work toward it." We took the train to Nakamura, walked along the river where the cherry blossoms had been. Now it was just green trees and summer heat. But Emma loved it anyway. "You really live here?" she said, more statement than question. "Like this is really your home now?" "Yeah, it is." "Do you miss New York?" "Sometimes, mostly I miss you, but you're happy here." "I can tell." We sat on a bench by the river watching people pass. Couples, families, solo wanderers like I'd been. "I am happy here," I said carefully. "But I was miserable in New York. Not because of you. Never because of you, but because your mom and I were wrong for each other. We made each other worse instead of better." "I know. I could tell." She swung her legs, not looking at me. "Are you mad at her? At Mom?" "No, not anymore. We both made mistakes. We both could have done better." She feels bad. "About how everything happened?" "I know, we talked about it. We're okay now. Different, but okay." Emma nodded, processing this with that 10-year-old wisdom that shouldn't exist, but does. "Mark's nice. He makes Mom laugh, but he's not you. He doesn't have to be me. He just has to be good to you and your mom. And it sounds like he is." "He is. But I still wish." She trailed off. "Wish what, sweetheart?" "I wish you could both be happy. You and Mom like separately, and that I could see both of you without it being weird or sad." I pulled her close. "We're working on that. It takes time, but we'll get there. You get to have a mom who's happy with Mark and a dad who's happy in Tokyo. And you get to be part of both worlds. That's not the worst thing, right?" "No, it's pretty good, actually." She leaned into me. "I'm really glad you're happy, Dad. Even if it means you're far away." We sat there for a long time watching Tokyo live its life around us. The next 2 weeks were the best 2 weeks I'd had in years, maybe ever. I took Emma everywhere. The Team Lab Digital Art Museum, where she spent 3 hours wandering through rooms of light and color. The Ghibli Museum, where she cried during the Totoro short film. We took a day trip to Kamakura. Saw the Great Buddha. Ate shiatsu don by the ocean. I introduced her to my friends. We had dinner with Richard and Marcus and Hana at an izakaya, and Emma charmed everyone asking questions about their lives in Tokyo, their hobbies, what brought them here. "Your dad talks about you all the time," Hana told her. "We feel like we already know you." "Really?" Emma looked at me. Pleased. "Really?" I confirmed. "You're my favorite topic." We did pottery together at Yuki's studio. Emma made a lopsided bowl and declared it perfect. Yuki fired it specially. Had it ready before Emma left. For keeping special things, she told Emma to remember Tokyo. We took 1,000,000 photos. Emma with her ramen. Emma at the crossing. Emma at temples and parks and the top of Tokyo Tower. Emma with my friends with cats. With every vending machine she found interesting. On her last night, we sat at my apartment window watching the sun set over Tokyo. "I don't want to leave," she said quietly. "I don't want you to leave either, but you'll come back Christmas break maybe or spring and we'll video chat every week. Promise." "Promise." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Dad, can I tell you my wish from the shrine?" "Sure, sweetheart. I wish that you'd keep being happy. That you wouldn't stop building this life just because it's far from me." She looked up at me with serious eyes. "You're allowed to be happy even if it means being away. I want you to know that the permission I didn't know I needed from the person whose opinion mattered most. Thank you. I managed that means everything to me, and I'm going to be happy too with Mom and Mark and knowing you're here being happy." She smiled. "We can both be happy in different places. That's okay." "Yeah, sweetheart. That's more than okay." The next morning, I took her back to Narita. We stood at the security checkpoint, neither wanting to say goodbye. 2 weeks flew by, Emma said. They really did. But I'll be back. And you'll visit New York sometime, right? When you can. Definitely. We'll figure it out. She hugged me one more time. I love you, Dad. Thank you for the best 2 weeks ever. I love you too, Emma, so much. I watched her go through security, watched her turn and wave one last time, watched her disappear into the crowd of travelers. Then I stood there for a while, feeling the weight and lightness of it simultaneously. The sadness of goodbye. The joy of having had these 2 weeks. The knowledge that this wasn't an ending, just a pause. On the train back to Shibuya, I pulled out my phone and looked at the photos. Hundreds of them. Emma laughing, exploring, experiencing, building memories in my city, my life, my home. A text came through. Emma already at her gate. Thank you for everything, Dad. Tokyo is amazing. You're amazing. I'm so proud of you for building this life. Love you to the moon and back. I stared at that message. I'm so proud of you. And felt something break open in my chest. My daughter was proud of me, not for what I provided or achieved, but for surviving, for leaving, for choosing happiness, even when it was hard. I texted back, proud of you, too. For being so strong through everything, for giving me permission to be happy. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Tokyo blurred past the train windows. My phone buzzed with messages from friends. Hana asking if I was okay. Marcus suggesting drinks later. Richard offering to meet for pottery tomorrow. This life I'd built. These people who showed up. This city that had healed me. I got off at Shibuya. Walked through the crossing one more time. Looked up at my building in the distance. Home. Not because it was perfect. Not because the pain was gone, not because I'd forgotten everything I'd lost, but because I'd built something here, something real, something mine. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.